Chapter 1. Immortal Sex Assessment, the More Sons More Blessings System. _1 Jiang Country, Qingyun Sect. On the hazy white jade square filled with immortal energy, hundreds of young boys and girls sat cross-legged, motionless. Their eyes were closed tight, faces donned various expressions. Some wore expressions of rage, others were covered in fear, some were ecstatic, while others appeared inconsolably sad. Hiss! Among the crowd, Lu Changxing groaned softly, his eyes snapped open, and he instinctively clutched his forehead. Deep within his brain, bursts of memory flooded out like a deluge, battering against his mind. With these recollections, Lu Changxing understood what had happened. He had traveled through time. Had arrived in a world of fantasy and immortality. But for 18 years he had not awakened the mystery within the womb. Not until today, during the fourth stage of Qingyun Sect's Immortal Sect Assessment, the Trial of Heart, where he awakened his past lives' memories. Someone has awakened so quickly, their Dao heart is top-notch. Not far off, several examiners from Qingyun Sect were surprised to see Lu Changxing awaken. The Trial of Heart is the fourth stage of the Qingyun Sect's assessment, testing one's Dao heart. It is to say, one's state of mind and will. Lu Changxing, because of the awakening of his past lives' memories, was the first to awaken from it. Lu Changxing, 9th grade spiritual root, 18 years old, such a pity. He only displayed mediocre perseverance in the second stage, yet to have such a Dao heart, strange indeed. With a Dao heart like that, if he had a 7th grade spiritual root even at 18, he would be considered a decent immortal seedling. A 9th grade spiritual root at that age has limited potential. No matter how resolute the Dao heart, it is of no use. After reviewing Lu Changxing's information, many people showed signs of regret. Lu Changxing naturally couldn't hear the immortal master's evaluations. He was fully immersed in the sea of his mind. As his memories of his past life awakened, the all-but guaranteed system for transmigrators also accrued. The multiple blessings system. As the name implies, the more offspring, the greater the blessings. These blessings don't refer to intangible good fortune but real, tangible benefits. According to the system's information, there are currently 2 benefits. Firstly, there are numerous achievement rewards with regards to offspring. As long as achievements are triggered, the system will grant rewards. Secondly, the spiritual root talent and cultivation level of his offspring will all be multiplied onto him, their father. Moreover, the offspring of his offspring, his descendants' talent and cultivation level will also add to his own. However, it will not add as much as his immediate children's. With every generation, the bonus reduces by 50%. This feels like a child-rearing game, giving birth to children, nurturing them, unlocking achievements, receiving rewards. However, with this system in place, doesn't it mean my spiritual root talent can also improve? As long as my descendants have good talent and high cultivation level, I will soar right alongside them, perhaps even ascend to immortality while lying down. After getting to grasp his system completely, Lu Changxing's emotions stirred, and he was incredibly excited. In this world, the first step to cultivation is to possess a spiritual root. And spiritual roots are categorized into 9 grades. 9th to 7th grade are considered lower grade. 6th to 4th grade are middle grade. 3rd to 1st grade are high grade. Above 1st grade, there are the Earth Spirit Root, Heavenly Spiritual Root, and other rare mutant spiritual roots. In the first stage of the assessment, the talent test, Lu Changxing discovered that he had only a 9th grade spiritual root. It was the worst kind of spiritual root. To cultivate immortality was extremely difficult, and his future achievements were limited. But now, with the system, the multiple blessing system, Lu Changxing felt that his path to becoming an immortal was not so bleak. Just by having many children and cultivating them well, with effort building a large family, he could ascend as the patriarch lying down. Dad. Mom. Don't leave. It's fake, it was just an illusion. Ah. I did it, I became an immortal. No, this is fake, don't try to fool me. At that moment, the boys and girls on the Trial of Heart gradually woke up. As if they had experienced a nightmare, they cried out, interrupting Lu Changxing's train of thought. Lu Changxing, when did you wake up? The few people next to him were surprised to see that Lu Changxing had already awakened. I've just woken up a little while ago too, Lu Changxing replied, taking in the 3 young men and 2 women before him. Hong Yi, 16 years old, 8th grade spiritual root, the son of a marquis. Han Lin, 15 years old, 7th grade spiritual root, born to a blacksmith. Li Feiyu, 18 years old, 7th grade spiritual root, young gang leader of the Crimson Whale Gang. Xianxia, 15 years old, 4th grade spiritual root, young lady from a scholarly family. Xianxia, 16 years old, 6th grade spiritual root, born to a physician. These 5, like him, were all immortal seedlings brought in by the secular branch of the Qingyun sect. On the way they had come to know each other quite well. However, this familiarity was nothing more than banding together for warmth in an unfamiliar environment. The disparities in the backgrounds of the 5 were too great to allow for much common ground in conversation. Only Han Lin and Lu Changxing hit it off somewhat better. Since Lu Changxing came from a farmer's family, he found it easier to talk to Han Lin. I seem to be the first one to wake up. I wonder if I can enter an immortal sect. Lu Changxing, watching the others gradually wake up around him, pondered in his heart. Even with a system by his side, he still hoped to be accepted into the Qingyun sect. Because he was merely a common farmer by birth, it was only by a fortuitous chance that he had obtained an opportunity for cultivation and was led to the Qingyun sect's assessment. If he couldn't join the Qingyun sect, pursuing cultivation would be extremely difficult. Cultivation requires wealth, companions, techniques, and land, none of which can be lacking. Wealth needs no explanation. In both the secular world and the cultivation world, money is always of the utmost importance. Companion refers to fellow Taoists, companions. Technique refers to cultivation techniques, the teachings of others. The last, land, refers to the place of cultivation. In ordinary mortal regions, without spirit veins and where spiritual energy is sparse and barren, cultivation progresses very slowly. If one can enter the Qingyun sect, at least in the initial stages, one would have wealth, companions, techniques, and land, all in place. This is why countless people yearn to be accepted into an immortal sect. Those whose names are called, step forward. Before long, as everyone on the inquiry heart stage woke up, an executor from the Qingyun sect floated in the air, took out a jade scroll, and began to announce the list of successful candidates. Zhu San, Xiaoyuan, Han Lin, Xiaoxia, Zhao Qingqing. Names were called one after another. Those whose names were called were beyond excited, brimming with joy, and full of longing for their future as immortals. Those whose names were not called sank deeper into a heavy mood, fraught with disappointment. Is that it? Li Feiyu, seeing the Qingyun sect executor put away the list, showed a face of unwillingness. How could my name not be on the list? Hong Yi also bit his lip tightly, his complexion turned pale as he struggled to believe it. Although he possessed an 8th grade spiritual root, he was of noble birth and had previously spent connections and money to facilitate his acceptance. Sigh. Lu Changxing, seeing that his name was not included, also sighed, feeling somewhat heavy-hearted. Still, with the system, the blow wasn't too hard to bear. Next to him, some people were crying out loud in distress at this moment. The rest of you, leave the sect gate immediately. The Qingyun sect executor stated indifferently. Following that, with a sweep of his sleeve, a cloud of auspicious mist appeared beneath the feet of those chosen, and they rose up into the clouds and departed. The several hundred remaining all wore bitter expressions and left with reluctance. Once you step out of this gate, you and I shall lead different lives. Between immortals and mortals, 2 separate paths unfold. As they left the gates of the Qingyun sect, many voiced their emotions, crying out loud. Failing to be accepted into an immortal sect, even if they embarked on the journey of cultivation, they would only be loose cultivators. Their fates would drastically differ from those of immortal sect disciples. Hong Yi too looked regretfully at the Qingyun sect, shrouded in immortal mists and suffused with rosy clouds, sighing continually. Previously on the journey, he had even courted Shiyu. But now, Shiyu, having been confirmed to have a 4th grade spiritual root, was successfully accepted into the Qingyun sect while he was eliminated. She instantly became a being he could only long for and not reach. His noble status as a prince no longer mattered before the disciples of an immortal sect. Even Han Lin, whom he had previously looked down upon, and Zhao Qingqing, whom he had thought little of, were now beings he would have to look up to after being admitted into the Qingyun sect. What should I do next? Lu Changxing glanced once more at the mountain gate of the Qingyun sect, took a deep breath and pondered the path ahead. Although he had the system with him, it was not simple to exploit it. There was an initial accumulation phase. It required constant marrying and fathering children, then raising and nurturing them. The expenditure of time, money, and effort involved was not a small figure. For him, at this moment, it was rather difficult. Even though he had a spiritual root, he was just an ordinary farmer with nothing to his name. If he couldn't join an immortal sect's power, this spiritual root wouldn't be worth much. Just as everyone was descending the mountain, an elegantly dressed man in his 30s or 40s, wearing a green robe, approached and, observing those leaving, spoke up. Esteemed young friends, The Lu family of Jianghu Mountain is now seeking 20 sons-in-law, offering access to spiritual vein-blessed lands and cultivation manuals. Would anyone be interested? Chapter 2. Have 50 kids in 20 years? I choose to be a live-in son-in-law. _1. A marriage proposal? Providing access to a spiritual vein-blessed land and a cultivation manual? Those who had been eliminated and had to leave the mountain stirred with excitement upon hearing the words of the man in green. When Lu Changxing heard this, his heart was also moved. Through his recent analysis, he concluded that if he could join a cultivation power, it would naturally be the best option. As for the marriage proposal, becoming someone's son-in-law was no big deal. Cultivating, well, it wasn't disgraceful. However, he didn't speak up, opting to wait and observe instead. After all, there were no such things as pies falling from the sky. He didn't know anything about the situation with the Lu family of Jianghu Mountain. Who knew what the specifics behind this marriage proposal were, if it was a mere facade? May I ask, Senior, what are the requirements for your son-in-law? I remember that cultivation families usually don't nurture foreign bloodlines, right? Immediately, someone in the crowd asked. Among those who had been eliminated, there were many offspring of nobles, merchants, and even loose cultivators, who had a certain understanding of the cultivation world. Since my young friend asked, I, Lu, will not conceal it but will speak candidly. In recent years, my Lu family has lost quite a number of its youngsters, leading to a generational gap. That's why we have made this exception to take in sons-in-law to replenish fresh bloodlines. As for the requirements, within 20 years you must father 50 offspring. If you father one with a middle-grade spiritual root or 3 with lower-grade spiritual roots, you'll be deemed to have completed the task. During this period, not only will my Lu family provide you with a spiritual vein dojo and cultivation techniques, but you will also receive a certain quota of cultivation resources every month, the man in green said to the crowd, his face gentle and scholarly as he spoke slowly. However, as soon as these words were spoken, many in the audience felt this was not a call for sons-in-law. It was tantamount to looking for breeding pigs, soliciting people for reproduction. After all, heterosexual relations were known to greatly deplete vital energy and essence. For cultivators even more so. They had been eliminated by Qingyun sect and were already of limited potential. If they were to engage in such activities daily, their prospects in cultivation would probably be very limited, with little hope for significant accomplishments. Lu Changxing also twitched the corners of his lips slightly upon hearing this. Indeed, fathering 50 children in 20 years seems somewhat excessive. Even if one were to father one child a year, there wouldn't be 50 in 20 years. It appeared that the Lu family's call for sons-in-law wasn't one-on-one. Each candidate might be matched with 3 or 4 wives. However, the more he thought about it, the more it seemed like not something he couldn't accept. Upon further reflection, Lu Changxing even felt it was quite appealing and appropriate for him. Not only would he have a place for cultivation, but he would also get wives and assistance with raising children. It perfectly resolved the difficulties of his system's initial stage. Moreover, hearing such stringent requirements, Lu Changxing felt somewhat relieved. If the conditions weren't harsh, how would these eliminated folks like him have a chance to join a cultivation family? Hong Yi, who was beside him, saw a hint of interest on Lu Changxing's face and spoke. Lu Changxing, I have heard about the Lu family of Jianghu Mountain. They are a proper cultivation family with a foundation establishment ancestor within their ranks. And indeed, as he said, they fought a large battle with the Qin family of Red Leaf Valley over a spirit stone mine a few years ago, resulting in heavy losses of their young and strong. If you have nowhere else to go, this could be an option for you, Hong Yi said. Previously, he had been haughty and somewhat dismissive of Lu Changxing, Han Lin, and Zhao Qingqing due to his own status. But now that Han Lin and Zhao Qingqing had entered Qingyun sect while he was eliminated, his pride had all but dissipated, and he started to face reality. He realized that once they embarked on the path to immortality, the gap between princes, generals, merchants, or servants would not be as significant. If Lu Changxing were to join a cultivation family, even if his future achievements were modest, he would still be another friend and another connection. Thank you for the reminder, Brother Hong, Lu Changxing said, his remaining anxieties ebbing away after hearing this. He felt becoming a son-in-law of the Lu family was a very sensible choice for the time being. With the system in hand, as long as he could get through the early phase, the sky would be the limit. Right then, Lu Changxing stepped forward to sign up. Brother Lu, let's do this together. At this moment, Li Feiyu, as if making a difficult decision, spoke up. Brother Li, you want to join the Lu family as well? Hong Yi was somewhat surprised to see Li Feiyu choosing to join the Lu family. Lu Changxing was of peasant origin, which he could understand. But Li Feiyu came from the Crimson Whale Gang, a sizable faction, and as the vice gang leader, he had decent conditions. Yet, he was willing to become this sort of son-in-law who serves like a breeding partner. Life is but a dream of 100 years. Once a chance for cultivation presents itself, it cannot be missed. Li Feiyu said in a deep voice. Insiders knew the state of their own affairs. Although the Crimson Whale Gang was not bad, it wasn't solely his father's decision to make. They also couldn't provide too much wealth for his cultivation. If he were to return, his future might be to take over his father's position as the gang leader and live out an ordinary life. But knowing that he had a spiritual root and could cultivate, he was unwilling to go back. He had once seen his own father kowtow in front of a cultivator. He knew that no matter how high one's status in the secular world, or how advanced one's martial skills, they were nothing but ants in the eyes of a cultivator. So even if it was difficult, as long as there was a glimmer of opportunity, he would strive to pursue it. At least he would have no regrets in the future. Then I wish Brother Li and Brother Lu an auspicious cultivation journey. If there's anything in the future, feel free to send a letter to Rui Marquis Mansion. Hong Yi also understood the reasoning and didn't try to persuade them further, bowing in farewell. Being of noble birth, he would still have some financial resources at home and could continue with his cultivation, so he needn't become a dependent son-in-law. Suddenly, Lu Changxing and Li Feiyu came before the man in green clothes, indicating their willingness to join the Lu family. Upon hearing that Lu Changxing only possessed a 9th-grade spiritual root, the man in green showed a hint of hesitation. Because the better the spiritual root, the greater the probability and higher the grade that the offspring will possess one. However, seeing that Lu Changxing and Li Feiyu were together, and with Li Feiyu having a 7th-grade spiritual root, he still nodded his head. Have you thought this through? Once you go to Jianghu Mountain, there's no turning back and you'll need to sign a contract. If you cannot meet the conditions within 20 years, not only will you have to compensate 3 times the resources, but you'll also serve the Lu family for 10 years. The man in green said seriously. We've made our decision. Lu Changxing and Li Feiyu exchanged glances and nodded in agreement. About half an hour later, all 20 sons-in-law were recruited. All were youths with humble backgrounds and no notable connections. Not only those of noble birth could not lower their status to do this, but the man in green clothes also didn't want anyone with a significant background. My name is Lu Yuanding and I am the patriarch of the Lu family. From now on you can address me as family head. Now follow me back to Jianghu Mountain. Lu Yuanding said to Lu Changxing and the others. He then took out a golden thread-bordered pouch and opened its mouth. A series of white lights flew out from within, transforming into majestic horses with golden manes and sturdy limbs, the color of bright yellow. Ride horses. Many people were taken aback upon seeing these horses. Previously, an executor from Qingyun sect had simply waved his sleeves, and those selected were mounted on auspicious clouds and flew away. And now, following Lu Yuanding, they could only ride horses? Lu Changxing also felt that now that they were cultivators, riding horses seemed rather low. These are no ordinary horses. They are spiritual horses bred by the Lu family, able to travel 1,000 miles in a day, and you'll manage even if you don't know how to ride. Seeing the crowd's disappointment, Lu Yuanding explained. He had no other choice. The Lu family was but a small clan. Although they possessed a magic flying boat, it wouldn't be used lightly on normal days. Speaking of flying with others, it was even more out of the question. With his 8th-level energy refinement cultivation, even flying on his own would strain his spiritual power during long-distance travel, let alone flying with others. With so many people, riding horses was the most convenient and fastest way. And so, Lu Changxing and the rest mounted the spiritual horses and left with Lu Yuanding. At the foot of Qingyun Sect's mountain, 5 cultivators from the Lu family were waiting, accompanying them to prevent unexpected events on the road. Chapter 3, Ambushed Midway, the Perilous Cultivation World. One night had fallen. Lu Yuanding led a group of people to rest outside in the wilderness. And one had to admit, these spiritual steeds were indeed incomparable to ordinary horses. Lu Changxing didn't know how to ride, but even after a day of travel, he didn't feel very tired. May I ask the Lu family head, how long will it take to reach Jianghu Mountain? At this moment, a young man inquired. These spiritual steeds can cover 1,000 miles a day. At this pace, it will take just over half a month to reach Jianghu Mountain, Lu Yuanding answered. 1,000 miles a day? Just over half a month? Hearing these words, everyone exchanged glances with rather unpleasant expressions on their faces. Lu Changxing was also left somewhat speechless. It was incredibly far indeed. Lu Yuanding seemed oblivious to the grim looks on everyone's faces. He took out a porcelain bottle and said, "Half a month will pass by quickly. These are fasting pills. After eating one you will not feel hunger for a month. Come, one for each person." Saying this, he distributed a fasting pill to each person. Lu Changxing looked at the soybean-sized brown elixir in his hand a few times and, without thinking too much, swallowed it directly. Now that he was on board, he'd have to eat the elixir even if it were poisoned. Moreover, there was no need for the Lu family to harm them. After consuming the fasting pills, during the rest period, several young men began to sit cross-legged to cultivate, clearly already possessing cultivation techniques. Li Feiyu, on the other hand, went to one side to practice martial arts alone. Through earlier conversations, Lu Changxing learned that Li Feiyu, the young deputy leader of the Crimson Whale Gang, was highly skilled in martial arts. Being just 18 years old, he was already considered a top-tier expert in the martial world. After resting for about 3 or 4 hours, the group continued on their way. And so it went. In the monotonous grind of traveling, half a month passed by. Brace yourselves, we're about to arrive at Jianghu Mountain. Lu Yuanding, riding a spiritual steed on the official road, called out to the listless youths behind him. After half a month of monotonous travel, everyone had become numb, their bodies and minds exhausted. Lu Changxing appeared listless as well. In his past life, simply sitting in a car for a day left him feeling uncomfortable, let alone traveling by horse for half a month. Hearing Lu Yuanding's words that they were soon arriving at Jianghu Mountain, everyone's spirits were visibly lifted. The days of hardship were finally coming to an end. The 5 accompanying cultivators from the Lu family also breathed a sigh of relief. Their mission for venturing out was a family task to ensure the safe homecoming of the immortal seedlings. However, just at that moment, suddenly, whoosh whoosh whoosh, several dozen crystalline sharp ice cones erupted from the ground nearby, shooting towards Lu Changxing and the others with fierce momentum. No good, were under attack. Upon seeing this, Lu Yuanding's expression changed drastically, and he shouted in anger. At the same time, he stretched out his hand, fingers spread wide, casting out balls of fire radiating intense heat to intercept the ice cones. Protect the immortal seedlings. The other 5 Lu family cultivators also used their abilities, creating earthen walls and water barriers to shield Lu Changxing and the rest of the immortal seedlings. However, faced with so many ice cones, 3 immortal seedlings were still pierced through their chests and fell from their spiritual steeds with a thump, lifeless. So this is the cultivation world. Lu Changxing looked at the horrifying scene, couldn't help swallowing, and his complexion turned slightly pale. He might have been a person from another world, but neither in his previous life nor in this one had he ever witnessed such slaughter. This was his first time. At this moment, he gained a clear understanding of the cruelty of the cultivation world. "Ha, Lu Yuanding, did you think you could take these immortal seedlings back without asking my Qin family?" From within the earth, one cultivator after another burst forth. The leader was a tall middle-aged man dressed in a crimson robe. "Qin Shuixing, you dare to run rampant within the boundary of Jianghu Mountain." Seeing the man in the red robe, Lu Yuanding shouted coldly. He naturally recognized the other party. It was their nemesis, the Qin family patriarch of the Red Leaf Valley, from the Lu family of Jianghu Mountain. But he had not expected the latter to dare to launch a sneak attack right at their doorstep. However, it was indeed the best time for the opposition to set an ambush. Everyone was not only exhausted but also had their guard down. While speaking, he quickly burned a yellow talisman in his hand. It was a transmission talisman, requesting aid from the family. Quick battle, quick decision, kill. Qin Shuixing let out a cold laugh, his lips moving slightly as he clapped his hands forward, bringing forth biting coldness and conjuring sharp ice spikes that flew towards Lu Yuanding. And the 10 cultivators behind him also took action, attacking the immortal seedlings including Lu Changxing. Their target was not to kill the members of the Lu family, but the immortal seedlings. Boom, boom, boom. The 2 sides began to clash. The Qin family had the advantage in numbers and therefore had the upper hand. Coupled with the Lu family's need to protect the immortal seedlings, they were at a disadvantage and immediately fell behind. Just then, a cyan wind blade shot forth, breaking through the Lu family's defenses and slicing one of the immortal seedlings next to Lu Changxing in half. Blood splattered and sprayed onto Lu Changxing, causing his mind to go blank. Be careful. Another wind blade broke through the defenses and shot towards Lu Changxing. But Li Feiyu, quick-eyed and agile, leapt up and tackled Lu Changxing to the ground, dodging the attack. "Thank you, brother Li." Lu Changxing came back to his senses, his heart still racing with fear. If it weren't for Li Feiyu's timely move, the wind blade would have struck him, and he would have undoubtedly died. As a transmigrator with a system, it would have been truly frustrating to die in such a manner. After witnessing the cruelty of this world, Lu Changxing, although scared, found his desire to cultivate even stronger. In this world where the law of the jungle prevails, without strength, you're nothing but an ant, your life as fragile as a blade of grass. Woo-woo, cultivation is too dangerous, I want to go home. Please, let me go, this has nothing to do with me. Run, staying here is just waiting for death. Seeing the Lu family members at a disadvantage and several immortal seedlings slain, some seedlings begged for mercy while others chose to flee. However, no sooner had two of them left the protection of the Lu family than they were killed by fireballs, wind blades and ice spikes, deterring anyone else from running. At this moment, Lu Changxing and the others were like lambs waiting for slaughter, only praying that the Lu family could hold on. Fortunately, before long, sounds of the air being pierced could be heard. Figures flew from Jianghu mountain towards them. Go! Realizing that reinforcements from the Lu family had arrived, Qin Shuixing did not hesitate, made a quick decision, and immediately led his people to escape. Daddy, are you all right? At that moment, a woman dressed in a snow-white gown quickly descended from the sky to Lu Yuanding's side. Her voice sounded like a babbling brook, and her face was full of concern. She was delicately beautiful with a slender figure, graceful in every movement. Her white gown fluttered, revealing a small stretch of round, jade-like snow-white legs, resembling a goddess descending to the mortal realm, causing the immortal seedlings, who had just narrowly escaped death's door, to be lost in trance. Lu Changxing was no exception. Having experienced the onslaught of beauties in the age of the internet in his previous life, he thought he would not be surprised. But upon seeing the woman in white, he was taken aback by her beauty. Her forehead was like a painting, her eyes deep as autumn waters, her nose high and proud, lips red as rosy dawn, with skin white as jade perfectly embodying dazzling eyes and ivory skin. What moved people most was the temperament of the woman. Ethereal and elegant, like an immortal, she was reminiscent of a snow lotus from the heavenly mountains, standing unworldly and independent. If it weren't for the concern on her face, she would seem an ethereal fairy untouched by the mortal realm. If I were to marry into the Lu family and have children with such a woman, I wouldn't mind having 50, no, 100 children, Lu Changxing thought to himself. But he knew it was impossible. As the daughter of the family head, how could she possibly marry a breeding son-in-law like them? It was a dream that could only be realized in his sleep. Miaoga, father's fine, just drained of spiritual power, said Lu Yuanding, waving his hand to his daughter. Lu Miaoga. The young men engraved the name of this extraordinary and ethereal woman in their hearts. Lu Changxing also remembered the name. The other arriving members of the Lu family also descended, relieved to find Lu Yuanding and the others mostly unharmed, with only 8 immortal seedlings dead. They didn't take it too heavily to heart. The death of 8 immortal seedlings was regrettable but not something to grieve overly about. After all, the Lu family had not yet invested much in these seedlings. Soon after, the group safely made it to Jianghu Mountain. Chapter 4: 3 Wives. _1 Jianghu Mountain is not a single mountain, but a range filled with crystal-clear, translucent green bamboo. Upon entering the mountain, Lu Changxing could clearly feel that the air was much fresher and more humid. There were streams in the mountain valleys and colorful birds chirping, with terraced fields on some slopes cultivating grains and vegetables, much like a utopian paradise. The Lu family had built a number of villages and manors throughout these mountains. Lu Changxing and the group of immortal seedlings were settled in Jianghu Villa located in the outer periphery. Beneath Jianghu Villa lies a first-grade spirit vein. From now on, you will live here and focus on your cultivation. Rest assured that as long as you fulfill the previously agreed-upon conditions, you're free to leave the Lu family or stay in the future. Uncle Fu settled them in. After giving some brief instructions, Lu Yuanding left. I am in charge of Jianghu Villa, you can call me Uncle Fu. Come with me now, he said. Uncle Fu was an old man with gray hair and a slightly stooped body. After introducing himself, he led everyone to go through the formalities, and also introduced them to various aspects of Jianghu Villa. Jianghu Villa was vast, home not only to them but also to the Lu family's own immortal seedlings who were cultivating there. However, they were mostly collateral family members with average talent. If anyone had exceptional talent, they would usually reside in the core area of Jianghu Mountain, where the concentration of spiritual energy was much thicker due to a second-grade spirit vein. Along the way, the group saw many Lu family disciples. These people also looked at Lu Changxing and the others curiously, as if watching monkeys, with a hint of disdain and arrogance in their eyes. Regarding this, Lu Changxing was quite calm. To put it nicely, they were sons-in-law who had married into the family from different ethnic groups. To put it unpleasantly, they were here to breed. However, through observation he could tell that the Lu family's disciples, both male and female, were quite good-looking. This made him somewhat relieved about the subsequent breeding part. After all, who didn't hope for a good-looking partner when coming to be a son-in-law and have kids? Lu Changxing admitted he was quite superficial. An hour later, under Uncle Fu's arrangements, Lu Changxing and the others signed the marital contracts, processed their identity plaques, received cultivation techniques and were allocated living quarters. The living space was a separate courtyard covering nearly 200 square meters, replete with pavilions, terraces and towers. It was fully equipped. Lu Changxing sat on the large bed in his room and took out the cultivation technique. Return to origin technique. Upon opening the technique manual, an image of a man in a gray robe appeared, demonstrating poses and began explaining in detail how to cultivate. Worthy of being a cultivation method, it even has video functionality. Lu Changxing couldn't help but admire the manual in his hands for a few moments. He couldn't figure out how the book projected the image and produced sound but found it quite magical. Following the guidance of the figure in the manual, he began to try cultivating. After attempting for a long time, Lu Changxing finally entered the right state. His mental spirit became lucid, sensing the wisps and strands of colorful spiritual energy around him. Knowing he had completed the first step, sensing the spiritual energy, he then tried to draw the energy into his body. Under his control, the spiritual energy slowly converged towards him, entering his body through the pores all over his skin. This process was very slow, and once the spiritual energy entered the body, it had to circulate a full cycle before a strand of it could remain in the Dantian Qi. While the spiritual energy circulated, it also nourished the Bodhi's flesh, veins and bones, slowly expelling impurities from the body and thus performing a marrow cleansing. The night passed. So, this is what having a 9th grade spiritual root is like. At this rate, breaking through to the first level of Qi refinement will take ages. Looking at the faint trace of cool aura in his Dantian Qi, Lu Changxing gave a wry smile. And this was while cultivating in a place with a spirit vein. Without a spirit vein, the process would have been even slower. At that moment, Lu Changxing gained a profound understanding of the difficulties of cultivation. Sigh. Looks like I have to rely on the system. Lu Changxing exhaled deeply. Knowing that relying solely on his own efforts to cultivate was simply unrealistic, the only option left was to depend on the system. I wonder when the Lu family will arrange a wife for me? Lu Changxing thought. Ding ding ding. It was at that moment the bells in the courtyard rang out. Someone had come. Lu Changxing left his room and opened the courtyard door. Lu Changxing, the Lu family has already organized a reception banquet to welcome and cleanse the dust of travel for you. Follow me, Uncle Fu spoke from the doorway. Behind him were the other immortal seedlings. A welcome reception? Hearing about this welcome reception, Lu Changxing had a hunch and nodded, all right. Then Uncle Fu gathered all 12 immortal seedlings and took them to a spacious and elegant hall within Jianghu Villa. There was no one else inside, only 12 seats were arranged, adorned with fine wines and delicacies. After everyone took their seats, it was not long before a stream of graceful and enchanting young ladies entered one by one, proceeding into the hall. Indeed. Seeing these ladies, Lu Changxing immediately knew his guess was right. This welcoming feast, intended to cleanse away the dust of travel, was meant for breeding arrangements. The women entering the hall numbered 50 or 60, all of them pleasant to look at. Although none were as stunning as Lu Miaoge, there were still many beauties, comparable to some online celebrities from his previous life. These women had clearly made an effort to dress up, each bearing a unique style. Some had a petite build with a cute appearance. Some wore simple makeup, gentle and graceful. Some had brows like sharp swords, dressed in vigorous attire, their demeanor spirited and bold. Some were dressed in ornate court attire with their hair coiled up, dignified and elegant. There were also those with ice-cold faces like icebergs, their figures graceful, seductive and alluring, dressed in diaphanous gauzy fabrics, with long legs and high heels, beguiling and tempting. One could say, with so many types available, there was bound to be one to stir your heart. This gesture, quite impressive indeed. Amazed by the bevy of beauties before him, Lu Changxing couldn't help but praise inwardly. He felt that the Lu family was indeed generous in this regard, no two ways about it. They truly were a proper cultivation family. All these ladies are outstanding women from our Jianghu Lu family's secular branches, not only literate and well-mannered but also virtuous and wise, and well-versed in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, all of them pure. Today they will provide a warm reception for the gentleman. You may choose the one you favor, and this old man will arrange the wedding for you, Uncle Fu said. After he finished speaking, he left the hall, leaving only Lu Changxing and the other 11 with the multitude of Lu family women. There was no need for Lu Changxing and the others to take the initiative. The women approached their seats on their own. Although they were secular women from the Lu family, most were descendants of cultivators. Coming here was a matter of personal choice without any coercion involved. The women hoped to select desirable immortal seedlings, bear children with spiritual roots, and thus benefit from association with their offspring. Therefore, in this welcoming and dust-cleansing feast, the women generally had more say in the matter. In this life, Lu Changxing had the background of a peasant, and in terms of appearance he was quite plain. With his 9th grade spiritual root, only 3 women approached him. He didn't mind this and simply embraced all 3 of them. One must learn to be content. Having 3 was fairly good. Moreover, all 3 young ladies were quite attractive. One was pure and lovely with a playful personality. Another was innocent and charming, giving off a sense of both purity and desire. And the third was gentle in appearance, graceful in character, exuding an air of a well-bred young lady. The first 2 girls looked somewhat similar in features, likely sisters. That would do. In his previous life, if he could have had 3 wives like these, his ancestors would have been bursting with pride. In contrast to Lu Changxing's initiative, the other 11 were much more resistant. For instance, Li Feiyu with his handsome and valiant appearance along with a 7th grade spiritual root, had 7 ladies approach him. However, he only chose 1 lady of exquisite beauty, sending the others away. An hour later, the reception feast concluded. Everyone had made their chosen one selections. Aside from Lu Changxing who chose 3, the others only selected 1 or 2. They still had aspirations for cultivation. It was simply because of the contract they signed with the Lu family that they temporarily chose one for the sake of formality. They hoped that once their cultivation reached a certain success, they would be able to change their status. Afterward, under Uncle Fu's arrangements, the 12 held a simple wedding banquet that very day. The wedding was kept simple, and once the formalities were completed, it was time for the bridal chamber. My lady. Husband X3. In the bridal chamber, Lu Changxing gazed at the 3 charmingly alluring ladies in front of him and drew the bed curtains closed. This year Lu Changxing was 18 and had taken 3 wives. The gentle and well-bred one was named Lu Lanshu. The pure yet charming one was named Lu Zier. The pure and lovely one was named Lu Qing'er. They were sisters. Chapter 5, Becoming a Dad. _1/2 a month later. Lu Changxing, you've done well. Not only have you married 3 women from our Lu family, but within half a month, you've also gotten Lan Shu pregnant. Our Lu family always clearly delineates rewards and punishments. Naturally, we won't shortchange you. Here are your rewards. A lower-grade flying sword. A Jianghu vestment robe. A bottle of yellow dragon elixir. 100 caddies of spirit rice. Within a grand hall of Jianghu Villa, Lu Yuanding said to Lu Changxing. It had already been half a month since Lu Changxing's wedding day. Knowing his own cultivation had limited effects, Lu Changxing didn't cultivate much in the past half-month, focusing all his energy on creating offspring. His efforts were not in vain. Among his 3 wives, Lu Lanshu was found to be pregnant. Upon hearing this news, Lu Changxing was extremely happy and excited inside. Whether in his past life or this one, this was the first time he was going to be a father. Even if the birth of this child was mixed with many utilitarian motives, the joy was heartfelt. The moment he knew he was to be a father, he had already thought of the child's name. If it was a boy, he would be called Pingon. If a girl, she would be called Sheila. He wished for his child to live in peace and joy. When the patriarch of the Lu family, Lu Yuanding, heard this news, he went personally to Jianghu Villa to commend Lu Changxing, and bestowed upon him generous rewards. A lower-grade magical instrument was worth 50 spirit stones. A vestment robe was worth 30 spirit stones. 100 caddies of spirit rice were worth 10 spirit stones. A bottle of yellow dragon elixir was worth 10 spirit stones. That is to say, the rewards given to Lu Changxing were equivalent to 100 spirit stones worth of resources. Other immortal seedlings, upon hearing these rewards, turned red with envy. They looked at Lu Changxing with eyes full of envy, jealousy, and resentment. To know, for their cultivation in the Lu family, The family provided only 2 spirit stones and 10 caddies of spirit rice per month. Now the rewards given to Lu Changxing were almost the equivalent of 3 years' worth of their resources. Just for being the first to produce a child, he received 3 years' resources. This made their back teeth nearly shatter with frustration. Many thanks to the family head. Lu Changxing, too, wore a face full of joy as he respectfully expressed his thanks. He hadn't expected that being the first to produce a child would come with such rewards. However, he understood that this was Lu Yuanding's way of stimulating others, spurring them to quickly produce offspring as well. You've earned this. Our Lu family never mistreats anyone. For all who beget children, the family head has rewards as well. And if anyone is the first to produce a child with a spiritual root, the family head will give even greater rewards. Lu Yuanding surveyed the crowd as he spoke. At these words, everyone felt somewhat pressured, thinking about hastening home to create offspring. Even Li Feiyu was somewhat tempted. However, subsequently, when others bore children, the reward was only a bottle of yellow dragon elixir and 10 caddies of spirit rice, which couldn't compare to Lu Changsheng's initial reward at all. Another month passed and Lu Changsheng's wife, Lu Qing'er, also became pregnant. For the second pregnancy, the family did not give any additional rewards. If rewards were given for each child produced, the Lu family would have been emptied out long ago. Then more than half a month later, Lu Changsheng's third wife, Lu Zier, was also found to be pregnant. In a little over 2 months since entering the Lu family, Lu Changxing had managed to get all 3 wives pregnant, leaving the other immortal seedlings speechless, wondering if this man didn't need to cultivate at all? Was he that desperate? This was not just due to Lu Changsheng's own tireless efforts but also because he had been calculating their ovulation periods, and with the help of the pregnancy tonic provided by the Lu family, he maximized the chances of conception. Overall, Lu Changxing could say with a clear conscience that he had put in his best effort. After all 3 women became pregnant, Lu Changxing also began to cultivate with a quieted heart. Because all 3 wives were pregnant, Uncle Fu sent 2 maids to serve and take care of the daily life of Lu Changxing's family. These 2 maids had fair skin and beautiful figures. It was obvious that they were not sent just to serve daily needs. Evidently, seeing his aptitude for reproducing, the Lu family had sent them to encourage more breeding from him. For these 2 maids, Lu Changxing had no immediate plans. He wanted to have many children, but these things should not be rushed. Slow and steady was the proper course. Constant toil really was harmful to the body. Before starting his cultivation, doing it many times just made him feel a bit drained. But after beginning cultivation, Lu Changxing was able to perceive clearly that his vital essence was depleting, affecting not only his physical state but also his cultivation speed, requiring time to recover. This was also why other immortal seedlings were unwilling to recklessly have children. It really would lead to their own ruin. In the blink of an eye, more than half a year had passed. I finally made a breakthrough to the first level of qi refinement. Inside the practice room, wearing a Jianghu vestment robe and sitting cross-legged, Lu Changxing opened his eyes and exhaled a breath of foul air, his face full of joy. It had been almost 10 months since he came to the Lu family. He had finally completed the process of drawing qi into his body and had broken through to the first level of qi refinement. He had officially become a cultivator. This speed was naturally not fast, but it wasn't very slow either. After all, when he first arrived at the Lu family, he had spent a considerable amount of time having children. There are 9 levels in the qi refinement realm, and the first 3 levels aren't difficult. As long as one persists in cultivation, success will come naturally. Lu Changxing was able to achieve this speed of breakthrough thanks largely to that bottle of yellow dragon elixir, which saved him several months of hard cultivation. Otherwise, Lu Changxing estimated he would need another 2 or 3 months to break through to the first level of qi refinement. This also made him realize the importance of financial resources in cultivation. During this period of more than half a year, apart from cultivating, he also tended to other matters. He took the 2 maids sent by Uncle Fu as concubines, and they successfully conceived. In response to this, Uncle Fu sent over 2 more maids with decent appearances. And to reward him, he increased his monthly allowance to 3 spirit stones and 20 jin of spirit rice. Lan Shu must be about to give birth too. Lu Changxing stood up and adjusted his Jianghu robe slightly. Although this robe wasn't a magic artifact, it was still quite extraordinary. Once worn, it could automatically adjust in size, always fit perfectly, and had the effects of resisting extreme temperatures and repelling dust. After coming out of retreat, Lu Changxing spent time with his wives and concubines for a while, then went to visit Li Feiyu's home to catch up on old times. Among all the immortal seedlings who came to the Lu family, He was only on friendly terms with Li Feiyu. Not only because the two met at the beginning, but also because Li Feiyu had saved his life on the way to Jianghu Mountain previously. Through such prolonged contact, Lu Changxing had learned that although Li Feiyu was reticent, he could be considered a cold-faced but warm-hearted person, worthy of deep friendship. Another half-month later. Don't be nervous, sister-in-law's life here at Jianghu Villa is nurtured by spiritual energy, her physique is robust, giving birth to a child will not be dangerous. Moreover, there's a cultivator to assist the childbirth, so rest assured. Outside the room, as Lu Changxing listened to Lu Lanche's wailing inside, his fists clenched and unclenched repeatedly, Li Feiyu offered comforting words beside him. I'm not nervous, I'm just excited, happy. Lu Changxing took a deep breath in and out as he spoke. But his eyes and thoughts were unsettled, clearly revealing his stubborn front. Have you thought of a name for the child? Li Feiyu asked. Although the child would be raised in the Lu family after birth, as the father, he still had the right to name the child. As for the surname, Lu Changxing shared the same surname as the Lu family, so there was no need to worry about the surname issue anymore. I've thought about it. If it's a boy, he'll be named Pingon, and if it's a girl, Sheila, Lu Changxing replied offhandedly, his thoughts still unsettled. Soon after, a clear and loud cry of a baby emerged from the room, startling Lu Changxing. And just at that moment, a system notification sound abruptly resounded in Lu Changxing's mind. Congratulations to the host on the birth of your first offspring, you've earned one lottery draw chance. A lottery? Lu Changxing, hearing this system notification, was momentarily stunned. He quickly realized that this was the offspring achievement reward from the system. He did not have access to view this achievement, he could only explore it himself. Without looking at the system lottery, Lu Changxing watched the delivery room with concern. After a short while the door opened. A woman carrying a bundled-up, rosy and wrinkled infant, stepped out of the room. Congratulations, sir, it's a young master. Lu Changxing reached out to hold the baby, looking at his wrinkled, ruddy face and big bright eyes, his face revealing a smile that came from the depths of his heart. From today onwards your name will be Lu Pingon. My son. Chapter 6. The 100 Arts of Cultivation, Talisman Making. Understood Wan Lanshu, you've worked hard. Lu Changxing, holding the baby, entered the room and saw Lu Lanshu lying on the bed. He sat beside her and gently took her hand. Although the two of them were bound by a marriage of convenience, with no foundation of feelings, it is said that love grows over time. Having spent so much time together, especially now that the child had been born, naturally some feelings had developed. Husband. Lu Lanche's pale face showed a touch of a smile as she weakly called out. Don't move, just rest well. Lu Changxing's voice was soft. Holding the child and looking at his wife at that moment, he felt a sense of happiness in his heart. He thought it would be quite nice to continue like this forever. But he remembered the assassination by the Qin family while on the way to Jianghu Mountain. The cruel law of the survival of the fittest in this world. Lu Changxing knew that happiness also needed the protection of strength. Without even looking far, without strength, once he left the Lu family, even his child would not be his. And more importantly, having the fortune to traverse to such a world, with the destiny of cultivation and a system beside him, he wasn't content with a mediocre and ordinary life. Seeing the weak appearance of Lu Lanshu and knowing she needed rest, Lu Changxing did not talk much. He told her to rest well and handed the baby over to a woman standing by. It wasn't because the baby had to be given to the Lu family right after birth, but because he didn't know how to take care of an infant, so he let the woman look after it. As for the child's spiritual root, it would not manifest until they were 5 or 6 years old, so it could not be tested now. After leaving the birthing room, Lu Changxing returned to his own room and silently called out. System, I want to draw a lottery. Immediately, a pale red virtual lottery wheel appeared before his eyes. It was divided into 7 areas. Cultivation technique, skills, pet beasts, elixir medicines, magical treasures, and others. It's quite comprehensive. Lu Changxing looked at the items available for the draw, his face showing delight. The only caveat was that the lottery will look a bit like the roulette from the money-grabbing games of the Penguin Corporation from his previous life. It made him feel unreliable, somewhat panicky. Can good things really come out of this? And besides, the lottery in his previous life depended on spending money, but this live's lottery depended on spending vitality? It felt rather strange to him. Forget it, consider this lottery as the system's gift money. Lu Changxing didn't overthink and silently said, start the lottery. At once, a golden light began to spin on the pale red wheel. After 5 seconds, the wheel slowed down, and under Lu Changxing's hopeful gaze, the golden light stopped on skills. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining a second-rank talisman-making skill. The reward has been issued to the system space, and the host can check it at any time. A talisman-shaped light cluster emerged from the big wheel, accompanied by the sound of the system's voice. With a slight movement of his mind, Lu Changxing saw a talisman-shaped light cluster in the system space, with information appearing on it. Second-rank talisman-making skill. Upon use, you can directly comprehend second-rank full-level talisman-making skill and the corresponding complete collection of talismans. Directly obtained second-rank full-level talisman-making skill? System, I apologize, I admit I was a bit narrow-minded at the start, carrying some bias. When Lu Changxing saw the information, his expression was full of surprise. He hadn't expected to get something this good on his first try at the lottery. Having been in the Lu family for a while now, he hadn't just focused on having a child and practicing cultivation. He had also enriched himself by learning many things about the cultivation world. He knew how precious the second-rank talisman-making skill was and its value. Just like in the secular world, cultivators also had many professions and skills. For example, alchemy, artifact refining, talisman-making, formation, beast taming, gardening, medicinal cooking, spirit identification, mining, and so on. In his previous life, there was a saying that if you have a skill, you will not starve wherever you go. It applies just the same for cultivators. Moreover, not only will you not starve, but you will also be in high demand, esteemed wherever you go. Because the entry threshold for a cultivator's skills is much higher, it's not something you can learn just because you want to, nor can everyone master it. It depends greatly on talent and wealth. Among all skills, formation, alchemy, artifact refining, and talisman making are especially popular. Second-rank talisman making corresponds to the talismans of the foundation establishment stage, which is above chi refinement. With this skill, he could completely become an honored guest, a guest elder in various families and powers. Without further thought, Lu Changxing mentally activated the second-rank talisman-making skill in the system space. In an instant, a surge of knowledge rushed into his mind. Introduction to Talismans, complete collection of basic talismans, complete collection of first-rank talismans, complete collection of second-rank talismans, the great art of talisman making, how talismans are made, talisman making. From beginner to grave. After a while, Lu Changxing's mind was filled with numerous pieces of knowledge about talismans. He also felt as if he had been drawing and making talismans for dozens of years. He quickly approached his desk, picked up a writing brush and sketched out a mysterious and complex talisman figure on a piece of paper with fluid grace, as if dragons and snakes were racing across the clouds. This feeling is simply marvelous. It's as if I've been practicing calligraphy and writing for several decades. There's not the slightest bit of stiffness or unfamiliarity. Indeed, anything produced by the system is guaranteed to be a fine product. Looking at the talisman on the paper, Lu Changxing's face showed a surprised and delighted expression. He wasn't scribbling aimlessly, that was the talisman for a lower-grade first-rank fireball talisman. It was just that, since he hadn't used a talisman brush, talisman paper, spirit ink, or spiritual power, it didn't become an actual talisman. He couldn't quite explain this drawing process himself. It was like eating and drinking water, something he had done countless times before, that had already become muscle memory. With second-rank talisman-making skills, even if I leave the Lu family, I'll be able to stand on my own 2 feet. No worries about not being able to get a wife or support a wife and children. Lu Changxing took a deep breath, his emotions excited and exuberant. However, after a moment he frowned. But right now, I can't reveal these second-rank talisman-making skills. Otherwise, I won't be able to explain it and it may even bring trouble. An innocent man incurs blame by possessing a gem. A son-in-law who was eliminated by the Immortal sects and has only just started on cultivation. Suddenly mastering talisman making will definitely give rise to suspicions and invite trouble. Besides, he was currently a son-in-law living at the Lu family's expense. If he revealed his talisman making skills, who knows what attitude the Lu family would take. They might go from using him as a breeding partner to treating him as a talisman making tool. I can't rush it. I need to take things slowly. First, I'll buy a set of talisman making tools and materials to practice making talismans. Then I'll gradually reveal my talent for making talismans at the Lu family, eventually revealing my first and second rank talisman master skills in a logical progression. That way it won't arouse suspicion. Maybe even for my talent in making talismans, the Lu family will value me more and my status will rise. Lu Changxing took a deep breath and after pondering for a while, he made up his mind. Now seeing the effect of the system and possessing second-rank talisman-making skills, he felt more confident about this world and his future. He knew that as long as he was careful, had more children and caused less trouble, even if he didn't become immortal or an ancestor, his achievements in the future would not be too bad. The next morning, Lu Changxing went out and took out the magic flying sword that Lu Yuanding had rewarded him with before, and headed towards the 100 Treasures Pavilion in Jianghu Villa. The 100 Treasures Pavilion was akin to a department store. They sold all sorts of things such as magic artifacts, elixir medicines, talismans, spirit rice, spirit vegetables, demon beast meat and everyday items. Every month, Lu Changxing would use the spirit stones he received to buy demon beast meat and spirit vegetables from the 100 Treasures Pavilion. Elixir medicines were effective but too expensive. For someone as poor as him, eating spirit vegetables and demon beast meat was more cost-effective. Today he came to the 100 Treasures Pavilion intending to purchase a set of talisman-making tools and materials. As for the flying sword, he was out of money and planned to sell it for cash. "Shopkeeper, do you sell talisman pens, talisman paper and spirit ink for making talismans here?" Upon arriving at the 100 Treasures Pavilion, Lu Changxing asked the shopkeeper, who was lounging on a recliner. "What do you need these items for?" The shopkeeper was a gray-haired old man and also a cultivator. "I want to learn talisman making, so I plan to buy some materials to give it a try," Lu Changxing replied. "Learn talisman making?" The old man appeared to hear a joke and couldn't help laughing. Looking at Lu Changxing, he said, "Do you know how difficult it is to learn talisman making?" There weren't many cultivators in Jianghu Villa, only about 100 or so, and he knew most of them. Lu Changxing, being a son-in-law who had fathered 5 children in 1 year, had gained some notoriety in Jianghu Villa, leaving a relatively deep impression on the shopkeeper. "I don't know, but my talent is limited. Continuing to cultivate like this, I can basically see my limits. So, I might as well try learning a craft." Lu Changxing shook his head, smiling wryly. He had prepared all these excuses the night before. It's good that you have this thought, but I advise you not to waste your money. Any newcomer who wants to learn talisman making is likely to fail 100 times when they start, and if they have poor aptitude, even failing a few hundred times isn't surprising. That's still for the same talisman. If you try making a different talisman, although it gets somewhat easier, the failure rate is still shockingly high. For a novice to become an elementary talisman master, it requires thousands upon thousands of attempts. Think about the costs involved for yourself. The shopkeeper, seeing that Lu Changxing was diligent in the Lu family, having made 5 women pregnant within a year, meant well with his advice. Chapter 7, Talisman Making. _1 Lu Changxing, upon hearing this, was also somewhat surprised. Although he had acquired second-grade talisman-making skills through the system, he was truly unaware of the specific difficulties involved in talisman making. He had just realized that making talismans was much harder than he had imagined. For a rookie, it took tens of thousands of practice attempts just to get started and become an elementary talisman master. This elementary talisman master refers to a first-grade talisman master of inferior quality. First-grade talisman masters are categorized based on the talismans they can draw into first-grade talisman masters of inferior quality, middle grade, superior grade, and a top-level talisman master. Second-grade talisman masters are also classified the same way. Lu Changxing, having obtained second-grade talisman-making skills, was at full mastery of the second grade. That is, a top-level second-grade talisman master. For a newbie to elevate their talisman-making skills to the second grade, the time, effort, and money spent are simply immeasurable. Even dedicating a lifetime of effort might not be enough to achieve it. At this moment, Lu Changxing felt that his second-grade talisman-making skill was far more precious than he had imagined. "Shopkeeper, I still want to give it a try," Lu Changxing said with a determined look on his face. No matter how difficult it was, what did it have to do with him? The harder it was to become a talisman master, the more valuable this skill would be. "All right, since you insist on buying, how could I refuse to sell to you?" Seeing that Lu Changxing was persistent, the shopkeeper did not try to persuade him further. To give advice was already a kind gesture from him. You know young people, they won't stop until they hit the south wall. A regular wolf hair talisman brush, 20 spirit stones each, can be used approximately 200 times. First-grade regular talisman paper, 1 spirit stone for a pack of 10 sheets. First-grade regular spiritual ink, 1 spirit stone per box, can be used about 50 times. The shopkeeper quoted the prices. Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing nodded and took out his flying sword, saying, "Shopkeeper, would you please appraise this flying sword for me? Is this the one the family had rewarded you with?" The shopkeeper was somewhat surprised, having not expected that Lu Changxing would sell his flying sword just to make talismans. But then again, as a man who had married into the family, where else would he get the money if not by selling the flying sword? Indeed, Lu Changxing nodded. For this flying sword, I want short-change you, 50 spirit stones? The shopkeeper stretched out a hand. Deal. Then, please give me a wolf hair talisman brush, 10 packs of talisman paper, and 2 boxes of spiritual ink, Lu Changxing said, nodding and placing the flying sword on the counter. The shopkeeper indeed did not underquote him. If sold elsewhere, the flying sword would fetch just a few more spirit stones. Considering that Lu Lanshu had given birth and Lu Zier and Lu Qing'er were also about to give birth, Lu Changxing added, please also give me 1 gene each of ginseng, licorice, angelica, Solomon's seal, and goji berries. These were medicinal herbs grown by the Lu family themselves, categorized as spirit plants, with the effect of nourishing the primordial spirit and replenishing energy. Alright, that comes to a total of 37 spirit stones. They'll give you 13 spirit stones as change, the shopkeeper said as he put away the flying sword, took out the items Lu Changxing had requested, and gave him 13 spirit stones. Thank you, shopkeeper. Lu Changxing expressed his gratitude and left with his purchases. Inside the study, Lu Changxing neatly arranged his entire set of talisman brushes, talisman paper, and spiritual ink on the desk. Beside them, there were also copies of Introduction to Talismans and Complete Collection of Basic Talismans. The skill information given by the system included many kinds of talismans. But to put on an act, it must be thorough. It couldn't be that he became a talisman master without ever looking at a book, right? That would be a bit unreasonable. So, for the sake of caution, Lu Changxing decided to put on an act and made a trip to the Lu family's library, spending 1 spirit stone to borrow 2 books about talismans. The materials for making 100 talismans cost about 22 spirit stones. A first-grade inferior quality basic talisman can be sold for 1 to 2 spirit stones. If all are made into talismans, the lowest profit would be 5-fold, and at most it could be 10-fold. If all can be made into first-grade middle-grade talismans, then the profit could go up to over 20-fold. TSK, such high profit indeed. My talisman making belongs to full mastery at 2nd grade, so to draw all these materials into first-grade middle-grade talismans will be a piece of cake. Lu Changxing skillfully ground and mixed the spirit ink, calculating in his mind. Different grades of talismans required different materials. The wolf hair talisman brush he had bought was the most common type, suitable for beginners to use, and could only be used to draw basic talismans and lower and middle-grade first-grade talismans. It wasn't entirely true that it couldn't be used to draw upper-grade and supreme first-grade talismans. It just greatly affected the success rate of the talisman, and the brush was prone to wear and tear, leading to its disposal. Generally, a talisman master who could draw middle, upper, and supreme first-grade talismans wouldn't care about this amount of money. They would always try to buy the best materials and tools to increase their success rate in making talismans. Similarly, the talisman paper and spirit ink were also divided into ordinary, advanced level, and supreme, 3 grades. The ordinary kind was at most used for drawing middle-grade first-grade talismans. The advanced level was suitable for drawing middle and upper-grade first-grade talismans. The supreme kind was suitable for drawing upper-grade and supreme first-grade talismans. After grinding and mixing the ink, Lu Changxing laid out the talisman paper, took the talisman brush in hand, took 2 deep breaths to calm his mental spirit, and began to try making talismans. If he were a beginner, he would also have to bathe and change into new clothes and perform rituals like adjusting his body, mind, and breath, among others. But Lu Changxing was experienced, and these practices were already second nature to him, so naturally he did not need them. He dipped the talisman brush into the ink. Afterward, spiritual power surged from inside his body to his palm, through to the talisman brush in his hand, and then to the tip of the brush, making the tip soaked in spirit ink emit a faint luminescence. As the tip touched the blank talisman paper, he began to move it swiftly and boldly, splashing the ink with great fluency. The whole process was smooth and uninterrupted, without a moment's delay. Lu Changxing lifted his hand. One could see a layer of light emerge on the talisman paper on the table, emanating faint fluctuations of spiritual energy, which quickly solidified the spirit ink. After a short while, the spirit ink solidified, the light on the talisman paper circulated and then gradually dimmed, disappearing from sight. A lower-grade first-grade talisman, the Flame Bullet Talisman, was complete. Whew! Seeing this scene, Lu Changxing also let out a long breath and a smile appeared on his lips. Acquiring related skills was one thing, but successfully making a talisman himself was another. Making talismans really depletes spiritual power. With my level of chi refinement, I can at most draw 2 or 3 lower-grade first-grade talismans. If I were to draw a middle-grade first-grade talisman, I reckon I could only manage one at most. Lu Changxing examined the flame bullet talisman he held in his hands closely. By injecting a trace of spiritual power, one could activate the talisman, releasing a fire bullet. As for its power, it was about the same as the flame bullet technique of the 3rd level energy refinement. This was the formidable aspect of talismans. Lu Changxing, only at the 1st level of chi refinement, would deplete all his spiritual power using a single flame bullet technique. But with that same amount of spiritual power, he could draw 2 or 3 talismans with the power of the flame bullet technique at the 3rd level of energy refinement. Straight away, Lu Changxing drew another featherweight talisman and rejuvenation insignia. Both were lower-grade first-grade talismans. Feeling that continuing to draw would not only deplete his spiritual power but also tire his mental spirit, Lu Changxing stored the 3 talismans away and began to sit in meditation to cultivate. The next day Lu Changxing opened his eyes. After sitting in meditation all night, his spiritual power and energy had fully recovered. Perhaps the act of drawing talismans the previous day had consumed his spiritual power and mental spirit to some extent, making the cultivation last night more effective than usual. Talisman making depletes spiritual power and spirit, yet it seems to slightly assist cultivation? Lu Changxing was somewhat surprised. But he didn't pay too much attention to this slight effect. He came to the desk, picked up the wolf hair talisman brush, and prepared to try drawing a middle-grade first-grade talisman. Without hesitation he dipped the brush in ink and began to draw. The touch of the brush emitted a faint spiritual light, wildly scribbling on the talisman paper, flowing smoothly and successfully without any mishap. However, the moment he finished the stroke, sweat appeared on Lu Changxing's forehead, his face turned pale, and he looked completely drained, slumping back into the chair behind him. After a long while, Lu Changxing let out a long breath, sat up and picked up the talisman from the table. A middle-grade first-grade talisman, the golden light insignia. Once activated, it released a layer of golden light to protect oneself, capable of withstanding a strike from the 6th level of energy refinement. Right now, a middle-grade first-grade talisman is still a bit strenuous for me, Lu Changxing thought as he stored and hid the talisman away. In the days that followed, besides cultivating, he also took up making talismans. Almost every day he drew 2 or 3 lower-grade first-grade talismans. Or 1 middle-grade first-grade talisman. He kept all these talismans hidden in the cupboard in his study, to be taken out when the opportunity arose. Chapter 8. Both sons and daughters' talents revealed. One time flew by and in the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Lu Changxing's wife, Lu Qinger, gave birth as well. It was a son. This time the system did not appear to grant any reward. Having tasted the sweetness of the system's rewards, Lu Changxing felt somewhat disappointed. However, upon reflection it seemed normal. If childbirth triggered an achievement and earned a reward every time, there would be no need to raise children at all, one could just keep having them and take off oneself. After the child was born, Lu Changxing did not immediately name him. He planned to wait for half a month until the child of Lu Zier was also born to name them together. This was also the idea of his wife, who wanted to name the children of the 2 sisters at the same time. For such a small request, Lu Changxing naturally agreed. 20 days later, Lu Zier's child was born. It was a daughter. The system still did not respond, presumably a certain number had to be reached to trigger the achievement reward. But Lu Changxing was still very happy. It was not a matter of favoring boys over girls, but rather that he was now blessed with both a son and a daughter. For these 2 children, Lu Changxing and his wife discussed and decided to name the boy Lu Wuyu and the girl Lu Wuyo. The meaning was the same as the previously thought of Pingan and Sheila. They hoped their children could grow up safely and carefree, and that his own path of cultivation could also proceed smoothly without trouble. A month later. On this day Lu Changxing went to the 100 Treasures Pavilion, took out 5 unpromoted basic talismans and asked, "Shopkeeper, do you take this cleansing talisman and how much is it worth?" To reveal his identity as a talisman master would naturally require a gradual process. So, after spending nearly 3 months he finished drawing on the 10 stacks of talisman paper he had bought, with Lu Changxing keeping 5 blank talismans and crafting them into the simplest of the basic talismans, the cleansing talisman. After all, the shopkeeper had said that it was normal for a novice in talisman making to fail 100 times. So if out of 100 attempts at making cleansing talismans he succeeded in 5, it might be considered a bit of talent, right? Cleansing talisman? On hearing this, the shopkeeper was stunned. He looked at Lu Changxing and remembered the latter's sale of his flying sword to practice talisman making. Then, showing surprise with some disbelief, he said, "You made spirit talismans out of the 100 sets of materials you bought last time? And you made 5 of them." Although the cleansing talisman is the simplest of the basic talismans, for a novice who had never touched talisman making, succeeding in creating 5 talismans in 100 tries was quite remarkable. "Yes, I kept failing at first, but after one success, it felt much better, so I made these 5 talismans. I wanted to ask the shopkeeper if these talismans are worth anything?" Lu Changxing said. Thinking that he might often have to act in the future, Lu Changxing had also been practicing his acting skills in front of a mirror during these days so that he could appear more natural when speaking nonsense. "Let me take a look at the talismans," said the shopkeeper. Faced with this statement, he was somewhat at a loss for words. He hadn't expected Lu Changxing, a breeding outsider of the family, to possess such talent in talisman making. Lu Changxing placed the talismans he was holding onto the countertop. Subsequently, the shopkeeper picked up the talismans and examined them. As a cultivator, he naturally had some understanding of talismans. He could tell that, although the lines of these 5 talismans were not very smooth and the quality was not high, they were indeed successful and had no issues. The shopkeeper said with some emotion, "To be able to craft 5 talismans out of 100 sets of materials, even if they are the same type of spirit talisman, shows that you have considerable talent in talisman making. But cleansing talismans are just basic talismans and are not worth much as few people need them." He paused before continuing, "However, our Lu family has an encouragement plan to motivate family members to learn skills. For such basic talismans, we're willing to buy them for 1 spirit stone per 3 talismans. Although you are an outsider to the family, you can also enjoy this benefit," said the shopkeeper. "As basic talismans have limited uses, mostly just for daily life, they are not very impactful for cultivators. Thus not many buy them and the price is low. 1 spirit stone for 3 talismans. Hearing this price, Lu Changxing had also anticipated it. After all, many basic first-grade talismans were only worth 1 spirit stone apiece. With this price in mind, his 100% success rate in talisman making could still earn him 8 spirit stones. But it was not possible for him to make money this way. Not to mention a 100% success rate in talisman crafting was too outrageous. If he had to toil for 2 to 3 months just to earn this small amount, he would be treating himself like a slave. However, Lu Changxing had no intention of making money through basic talismans. He presented these 5 basic talismans merely to showcase his talent for talisman making. "All right." Lu Changxing placed 3 cleansing talismans on the counter. Then he took out 11 spirit stones and said, "Shopkeeper, please give me 10 stacks of talisman paper and 2 boxes of spirit ink. I'll take all 5 of your talismans and I'll charge you 2 spirit stones." The shopkeeper, seeing Lu Changxing's gift for talisman crafting, was willing to offer a deal. Although he was old, he also had descendants. If Lu Changxing indeed became a talisman master, there might come a time when they would need his help. "Thank you, shopkeeper." Lu Changxing immediately expressed his gratitude, placed the remaining 2 talismans on the counter, and took back 1 spirit stone. The shopkeeper accepted the talismans and the spirit stone, handing over 10 stacks of talisman paper and 2 boxes of spirit ink to Lu Changxing. "Thank you, shopkeeper." Lu Changxing thanked him once more and turned to leave. Remarkable indeed. What a pity he's not a Lu family disciple. Watching Lu Changxing walk away, the shopkeeper shook his head and sighed. If he had been a blood descendant of the Lu family with such a talent for talisman crafting, the family would definitely be willing to spend resources to cultivate him. But after all, Lu Changxing was a foreign family member, a son-in-law, and not considered one of their own. Late at night. Afterwards, Lu Changxing looked at the jade-like body stretched out on the big bed. Sitting up, he took a cleansing talisman from beside the bed and slapped it on himself. Instantly, a breeze blew, whisking away the stickiness on his body, leaving him feeling refreshed. These cleansing talismans are quite useful. Lu Changxing was rather satisfied after testing the cleansing talisman. On the bed, Lu Lanshu, with her face flushed from the exertion and her eyes lustrous with intoxication, saw Lu Changxing use the talisman to cleanse his body and said softly, "Husband, this is too wasteful, let your wife attend to you." "It's fine, these are self-drawn by me, not really worth much." Lu Changxing waved his hand and said, "You drew these talismans?" Lu Lanshu's lips parted slightly in surprise upon hearing this, her gentle face showing astonishment. Over the past few months, The fact that Lu Changxing had often been drawing talismans in his study was something she was naturally aware of as one of his wives. Although she herself didn't practice cultivation, living in such a family environment, she had heard about it. She knew that talisman making was difficult, and being able to create talismans was considered very impressive. Initially, like the others in her group who had married the group of immortal seedlings, aside from the rewards given by the Lu family, they mainly took the plunge in the hopes of riding on their children's coattails. They didn't hold much expectation or desire regarding their husbands because it was clear from the start that these immortal seedlings were highly unlikely to achieve anything. But understanding was one thing. If their husband turned out to be capable, that would, of course, be more than welcome. Whether for future livelihoods, conversations with sisters, or returning to the secular world, it was a matter of pride. After all, besides children bringing honor to their mothers, wives can also gain prestige through their husbands. Yes, your husband seems to have some talent in the domain of talisman making. Once I become a talisman master, I promise to give you all a good life, Lu Changxing said gently with a smile. There was no need to keep hidden matters related to talismans. It was something he would eventually reveal. The Lu family might even investigate and inquire about his talisman making from those close to him. So there was no point in concealing it. Divulging some of this information to his wives might help keep the harmony in the inner chambers. Your wife believes in you, Lu Lanshu replied softly, looking at Lu Changxing with eyes full of tenderness. Chapter 9. Martial Arts and Cultivation. _1 Seasons changed, spring turned to autumn and winter to summer in a cyclical dance, and before he knew it, Lu Changxing had been at Jianghu mountain for over a year. During this time he hadn't once stepped foot outside Jianghu villa, leading a life that could be said to be utterly mundane and dull to the extreme. However, with daily cultivation, talisman making, and spending time with his wives and concubines, his days were still quite fulfilling. As for having children, that had slowed down for now. Lu Lanshu, Lu Zier, and Lu Qing'er had just given birth not long ago and needed time to recover their vitality. The two maids who had been elevated to concubines were also pregnant, and were due to give birth in a few months. As for the two maids sent later by Uncle Fu, due to Lu Changxing being busy with talisman making over the past few months and his limited energy, he hadn't been able to get them pregnant. After all, he was nothing more than a chi refinement first-level weakling. His body and energy were limited. Moreover, Lu Changxing did not see his several wives and concubines merely as birthing machines. He would usually spend some time to develop a bit of affection and smooth over their relationships. The Lu family may treat him as a breeding partner, but he would not see himself as a mere sewing tool. His wives and concubines also had nice personalities. Indeed, just as Uncle Fu had said, they were graceful and educated daughters of the Lu family's secular world, dignified and virtuous, without an ounce of pretentiousness or affectation. To Lu Changxing, a transmigrator, they were unbelievably simple and easy to appease. Adding to that, all 3 wives and 4 concubines were from the Lu family. They got along quite well, so his domestic life had always been very harmonious. Today, after his cultivation session and drawing 2 talismans in his study, Lu Changxing saw the weather outside was nice and took his 2-month-old daughter out to the courtyard to bask in the sun. Jianghu mountain, being such a place, also experienced climate changes along with the 4 seasons, complete with spring, summer, autumn, and winter. It was currently spring with the sunlight being very mild and comfortable, perfect for sunbathing. After half an hour in the sun, Lu Changxing heard some noise from the neighboring courtyard and went over with his daughter to visit Li Feiyu's home. Li Feiyu was practicing martial arts in his small courtyard, his prowess quite astonishing. To be not at all exaggerated, he could take out someone like Lu Changxing with just one punch. Even though he was a cultivator, Li Feiyu had not abandoned the martial path. Seeing Lu Changxing come over, Li Feiyu stopped and finished his practice. He wiped off his sweat with a towel and casually remarked, "I heard you've been busy with talisman making recently. What brings you to my place?" "Just busying myself with nothing much," Lu Changxing laughed in response. Since he had a good relationship with Li Feiyu, and their wives often chatted when idle since they were neighbors, it was natural for Li Feiyu to know about his talisman making. "How's the talisman making going?" "I've heard it's quite an expensive endeavor." Li Feiyu sat by the stone table in the courtyard, picked up the teapot, and poured a cup of brewed tea. "Not bad, there's some hope. I'm not asking for much, just a craft to feed my wives and children in the future will do." Lu Changxing also took a seat, then said. Although he had a good relationship with Li Feiyu, he naturally wouldn't divulge matters concerning himself and kept the same explanation for outsiders. "That's pretty good. Having a craft to rely on means you can make a living anywhere in the future." Li Feiyu nodded, lifting the teapot to pour Lu Changxing a cup of tea. What about you? What are your plans? The Lu family can't possibly let you continue like this, can they? Lu Changxing took the tea, sipped it lightly. Of the 12 immortal seedlings who came to the Lu family together, all but Li Feiyu had sired children. Lu Changxing even heard that Li Feiyu's wife was still untouched. I cannot lose my virginity before reaching innate according to the Red Sun Heart method I cultivate. I've explained this to Uncle Fu, so the Lu family won't pressure me for now, Li Feiyu said so. As a 7th grade spiritual root, the Lu family was somewhat more lenient with him, and the pressure would not start at this stage. What about after breaking through to innate? Lu Changxing asked. Li Feiyu was silent for a moment before saying, having signed the contract and used the Lu family's resources, I, Li Feiyu, will naturally honor the agreement. In at most 1 year, he'll be able to break through to innate and also be able to lock in my essence to ensure that my vital yang doesn't leak, using it only for having children, Li Feiyu stated. Awesome. Hearing this, Lu Changxing couldn't help but express his admiration. He hadn't realized martial arts had this kind of function. Should he start practicing it too? After all, he now had 3 wives and 4 concubines, which required considerable effort. And as for cultivation and qi refinement, they did not greatly enhance his physical condition at present. He looked at Li Feiyu curiously and asked, Feiyu, once your martial arts break through to innate, how does your strength compare to a cultivator? Previously, on the road to Jianghu Mountain, when facing a wind blade from a Qin family cultivator, Li Feiyu was able to tackle him down promptly. Martial Dao innate practitioners should be able to exchange blows with cultivators. But as for specifics, Lu Changxing wasn't clear. After all, he had never experienced the strength of a martial Dao innate expert. As for cultivators, had only seen them once. Breaking through to innate and possessing innate true qi should be about the same as the spiritual power of the qi refinement 3rd level. So if it comes to a fight, it's all about whether you can get in close. But for a qi refinement 3rd level cultivator who can control objects and wield magic artifacts, it's too difficult for martial artists to get close. Li Feiyu said, a bitter smile appearing on his face. A martial Dao innate expert was already a top-level expert in the Jianghu. He had been practicing martial arts since he was a child, enduring the harshness of the summers and the cold of the winters, and after more than 10 years of hard training, he was only considered a first-rate expert. It was only because of his time with the Lu family over the past year, eating spirit rice and being nourished by spiritual energy, that his martial cultivation was able to progress so quickly, allowing him to break through to innate so rapidly. Yet a cultivator who reached the qi refinement 3rd level was comparable to an innate master. There was simply no comparison between the two. The reason why he hadn't given up on martial arts and still spent time on it was that he had reached this stage and had some persistence in his heart. Lu Changxing nodded his head, having a general understanding. Innate masters and qi refinement 3rd level cultivators were like warriors and mages. If a warrior could get close, he could win, but if he couldn't get close, he would essentially be kited to death. But as one could imagine, it was very difficult for an innate martial artist to get close to a cultivator. After all, apart from magic artifacts, if a cultivator also had protective vestment robes, talismans and other means, how could a martial artist fight? Are there realms above innate? Lu Changxing looked at his daughter in his arms and continued to ask. He suddenly thought that if his children did not have a spiritual root, he could send them to train in martial arts. After all, if only one parent has a spiritual root, the chances of the children having a spiritual root are very small. Only a 1 to 2% chance. This was also the reason why the Lu family demanded the birth of 50 children. The world was so dangerous. His children couldn't possibly spend their entire lives in Jianghu Mountain without going out. If they trained in martial arts from a young age, not only would they become strong and healthy, but they would also have some self-defense ability if they ever went out. Moreover, because of the system's second feature, Lu Changxing always felt that his current 3 children probably didn't have spiritual roots. The blessings of many children's system would add the talents and cultivation levels of his children to him. A child's spiritual root would manifest at around the age of 5 or 6 and could be detected, but that didn't mean there was no spiritual root before then. Yet with the birth of the 3 children, Lu Changxing did not feel any slight changes in his own spiritual root. So he had this faint guess in his heart. Of course, the specific situation would only be known after the children were older and tested, so Lu Changxing was just guessing and not sure. Above innate, there are innate grandmasters and great innate grandmasters. But even a great innate grandmaster is only on par with a qi refinement 5th or 6th level cultivator. To my knowledge, there are not many great innate grandmasters in the entire Jianghu, so the two cannot be compared at all. Li Feiyu shook his head as he spoke. Lu Changxing nodded his head, gaining a rough understanding of martial arts. Even if one cultivated to the limit, they could only be comparable to the middle stage of qi refinement. Thinking of his children's talents and how their strength could be added to his own, Lu Changxing couldn't help but think that if his dozens or hundreds of children cultivated to the level of great innate grandmasters, whether he could, under this enhancement, be comparable to the energy refinement late stage or even to foundation establishment. This thought made Lu Changxing feel that in the future, his children could practice cultivation if they had a spiritual root, or martial arts if they didn't. As for practicing martial arts himself, Lu Changxing just thought about it and had no real intention of acting on it. Currently, cultivation and talisman making, along with his wives and concubines, took up most of his energy. He did not have extra time or energy to spend on martial arts. Time flew by and another month had passed. Lu Changxing's fourth child was born. It was the fourth child born by one of his concubines, a girl. Lu Changxing named her Lu Shila. He had thought of the name from the beginning. At this time, Lu Changxing also realized a problem. If he kept having children like this, naming them would also become a problem that would make heads bald. He thought about establishing a family naming sequence, which would make it much simpler to name future children. As for another concubine, she would also give birth in 2 months. It's worth mentioning that through testing, this concubine was found to be carrying twins. Chapter 10. The Second Revelation of Talent. _1 in the study. Lu Changxing turned the last piece of talisman paper into a first-grade, middle-grade talisman. He still found it somewhat difficult to draw first-grade, middle-grade talismans. It wasn't a problem of skill. Talisman making was very consuming of spiritual power and mental spirit. If it weren't for his second-grade talisman master skills, with his third-level qi refinement cultivation level, it would simply be impossible to draw a first-grade, middle-grade talisman. After resting for a moment, he picked up the talisman and then opened a nearby locked cabinet. Inside the cabinet, neatly stacked, was a thick pile of talismans, amounting to hundreds. It had been almost half a year since he won the talisman-making skill from the lottery. And these talismans were the fruits of his labor over the past half year. Sigh, so many talismans, yet there's no way to sell them for money. As Lu Changxing looked at these talismans, he couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Having bought 20 bundles of talisman paper, apart from the few he tried with his crafty hands, attempting several more difficult first-grade, middle-grade talismans and failing due to insufficient spiritual power, all others were successfully made into talismans. To say he had a 100% success rate in making talismans wasn't an overstatement at all. But Lu Changxing didn't dare sell a single one of these first-grade talismans. He could only let them gather dust here. After all, last time he had only taken 5 basic cleansing talismans to the 100 Treasures Pavilion and that made the shopkeeper show a look of astonishment. If he were to take out first-grade talismans, he feared it would directly alarm the higher-ups of the Lu family. As for secretly selling them somewhere else, that wasn't realistic either. Not to mention that he would have to apply to the Lu family to leave Jianghu Mountain. The idea of him going out alone to sell things in the marketplace of an immortal town made Lu Changxing himself feel somewhat afraid. In this cultivation world there was nothing like laws. What if he encountered robber cultivators who might rob and murder him? After all, he was only a qi refinement third-level weakling who had not learned any spells. He was just a bit more agile and nimble than ordinary people and could only rely on talismans for protection. No need to rush, take it slowly. Lu Changxing took a deep breath and told himself that one must never be too hasty in matters, as prudence was the best policy. He then picked up the 9 cleaning talismans, 6 garment purification talismans, and 3 dust avoidance talismans he had drawn earlier and headed towards the 100 Treasures Pavilion. He intended to exchange these 18 basic talismans for spirit stones. At the same time, it was also to showcase his talent in talisman making once again. Shopkeeper, could you please exchange these talismans for spirit stones? Upon arriving at the 100 Treasures Pavilion, Lu Changxing called to the shopkeeper and placed the 18 basic talismans on the counter. Hiss, you've managed to make 18 talismans this time? And not just the cleansing talisman, but also the garment purification talisman and the dust avoidance talisman. The shopkeeper picked up the talismans and immediately recognized the other 2 types, astonished. I am now quite confident with the cleansing talisman and the garment purification talisman, but the dust avoidance talisman still needs some work, Lu Changxing said with a deep sigh. You were right before, shopkeeper, talisman making is too difficult and costly. At this rate, I don't know how long it will take before I can draw first-grade talismans and become a talisman master. Lu Changxing feigned a sigh of hardship. Although all three talismans were basic talismans, their difficulty varied and increased gradually. You're already doing very well. You indeed have a talent for talisman making, and if you keep it up, you will certainly become a talisman master, the shopkeeper said with a face full of emotion, finding it incredible. As of now, since Lu Changxing could draw three kinds of basic talismans, he was considered a talisman-making apprentice. As long as he persisted, he was guaranteed to become a talisman master. He took the talismans and handed over 6 spirit stones to Lu Changxing, encouraging him with a "keep it up." "Thank you, shopkeeper." Lu Changxing grabbed the spirit stones and left without buying anything else. "Aren't you buying talisman paper this time?" The shopkeeper was surprised to see Lu Changxing leave with only the spirit stones. "The previous talisman brush I had is worn out and can't be used anymore, so I'm planning to wait a bit until I have more spirit stones to buy a new talisman brush," Lu Changxing replied, shaking his head with a bitter expression. Although the expression was false, the words were true. The wolf hair talisman brush was said to be usable 200 times, but really after 180 uses, it barely functioned. The rest depended solely on Lu Changxing's second-rank skills to keep using the damaged brush for talisman making. With his current income of 3 spirit stones a month, even if he saved continuously, he couldn't afford a new talisman brush. Unless he sells the vestment robe he's wearing. However, Lu Changxing had worn this robe for so long and had grown quite fond of it, he didn't want to sell it. The shopkeeper also remembered that Lu Changxing had been using the same talisman brush for a long time as well. After a brief thought, he said, "Lu Changxing, what is your success rate now for drawing basic talismans?" "For the cleansing talisman and garment purification talisman, I'm already familiar with them and am 70 to 80% confident. For the dust avoidance talisman it's about 30%, and for the peace charm I've tried a few times but failed each time." Lu Changxing didn't know why the other party was asking this, but he was certain there was a reason, so he replied after some thought. "The difficulty of the dust avoidance talisman is 1 level higher than that of the peace charm. If he were about 70 to 80% confident with the peace charm, he could try challenging a lower-grade basic talisman." "Good." The shopkeeper nodded upon hearing this and didn't say anything further. Lu Changxing bowed and turned to leave. At that moment, a fair-skinned young girl with pretty features, wearing a long green dress, happily approached the 100 Treasures Pavilion, passing by Lu Changxing. The girl glanced indifferently at Lu Changxing, a look of disdain apparent in her eyes. Then she walked straight into the 100 Treasures Pavilion and excitedly called out to the shopkeeper, "Grandpa, I've broken through to the 3rd level energy refinement." The shopkeeper's face immediately lit up with a smile upon hearing this. "You've broken through to the 3rd level energy refinement. Very good, whatever reward you want, Grandpa will give it to you." "Grandpa, I want a flying sword." The girl immediately made her request. "No problem, at the 3rd level energy refinement you're able to wield a magic artifact. Grandpa has already prepared it for you," said the shopkeeper delightedly as he led the girl to fetch the flying sword. "Thank you, Grandpa," the girl said cheerfully. She casually asked, "Grandpa, what was that brat doing just now? I saw he didn't buy anything and he chatted with you for quite a while." "Hey, he's practicing talisman making and brings some basic talismans here to sell," the shopkeeper replied. "Talisman making? That social climbing son-in-law dares to practice talisman making," the girl scoffed upon hearing this. Most of the Lu family disciples from Jianghu Villa looked down on Lu Changxing and other outsiders like him, and she was no exception. Especially given Lu Changxing's reputation for continually taking wives and concubines, it made her feel disdainful. Now hearing that he was actually practicing talisman making, she naturally disdained it even more. What has Grandpa always taught you?" the shopkeeper said sternly, looking at his granddaughter. "Although Lu Changxing is a son-in-law who married into our family and came from another clan, he has been diligent and practical over the past year and has done right by our Lu family. If your word spread, it would make our Lu family appear petty and intolerant. Moreover, this Lu Changxing is quite extraordinary. He has a talent in talisman making and is already an apprentice. As long as he persists, he will surely become a talisman master in the future. So, such talk is forbidden from now on, and when you meet him in the future try to get along well. Once he truly becomes a talisman master, it will be beneficial to you as well," the shopkeeper instructed. "Really? That upstart Lu Changxing is an apprentice in talisman making? He could become a talisman master?" the girl exclaimed in disbelief after hearing her grandfather's words. It should be known that there were only 2 first-grade talisman masters in the Lu family. One was the fourth elder and the other was the eldest daughter. But now her grandfather was saying that an in-law, a nobody, could actually become a talisman master. This was something she found hard to believe. "Of course it's true, why would Grandpa lie to you?" said the shopkeeper as he affectionately ruffled his granddaughter's hair bun. "Why him, and besides, as an in-law, where would he get the money to buy materials to practice talisman making?" The girl still couldn't believe it and grumbled unhappily. She had attempted talisman making before but discovered she had no talent for it. Now, hearing from her grandfather that a social climbing in-law actually possessed such a talent, she felt outdone and quite irked, as it was a blow to her pride. A spiritual root doesn't define everything. Some people just have a natural gift in certain areas, and that's something nobody can predict. Now, when you meet him in the future, you don't have to flatter him, just be a bit more polite, the shopkeeper taught and comforted his granddaughter. As he spoke, he took out a lower-grade magical instrument flying sword from the cabinet and handed it to the girl. Chapter 11. Lu Miaoga _1 Qingzhou Villa within a courtyard. "Uncle Gue, how come you've taken an interest in Lu Changxing?" Uncle Fu had thought his good friend had come to drink and chat but hadn't expected him to bring up serious matters. He was somewhat surprised to hear about Lu Changxing's talent in talisman making. They were both elders in the Lu family but had mostly retired, only handling some simple affairs in Qingzhou Villa. Since this child is in our Lu family and possesses such talent, it naturally must not be wasted. Aren't you aware of our family's current situation? The condition of the Lu family ancestor is getting worse by the day, and the Chen family is always looking for opportunities to make a move. If this continues, the boy has an exceptional talent for talisman making. If he's given some cultivation, gaining a talisman master for our Lu family would indeed be a good thing. The shopkeeper of 100 Treasures Pavilion let out a sigh as he said this. Hearing these words, Uncle Fu's face also showed a hint of gravity. In the past few years, the strife between the Lu family and the Qin family had not only led to significant casualties among the Lu family's younger generation, but the Lu family ancestor had also sustained severe injuries in that battle. Since the Lu family ancestor was already advanced in years, with the addition of these injuries, he probably didn't have many years left. Now the Lu family had only one foundation establishment cultivator, the Lu family ancestor. If the Lu family ancestor passed away, without another foundation establishment cultivator to stabilize the scene, the family would be unable to protect their current estates and the blessed land of Qingzhou Mountain. He nodded and said, "That's true, if this child can indeed become a talisman master, it would indeed elevate our Lu family's foundation. Let's go, I'll accompany you to see the patriarch. Let the patriarch make the final decision." Straight away the two made their way towards Qingzhou Valley. Qingzhou Valley is the core area of the Lu family of Qingzhou Mountain. Below it lies a second-grade spiritual vein suitable for foundation establishment cultivators to cultivate. People like Lu Changxing, a son-in-law brought in by marriage, and ordinary Lu family disciples typically didn't qualify to enter. However, as elders of the Lu family, they indeed had the privilege to enter. The two arrived at a villa. "Uncle Gue, are you saying that Lu Changxing has a great talent for talisman making?" The patriarch of the Lu family, Lu Yuanding, was quite surprised upon hearing the words of the 100 Treasures Pavilion shopkeeper. "That's right, family head. About half a year ago, Lu Changxing bought a set of talisman making materials at the 100 Treasures Pavilion, saying he wanted to practice talisman making. At that time I didn't take it seriously. Unexpectedly, a few months later, out of the 100 sets of talisman making materials he bought, he actually made 5 successful talismans. And this time he made 18 successful talismans out of 100 sets of materials. Although I'm not versed in the art of talisman making, even I can tell that this boy has an innate gift in this field," the shopkeeper of 100 Treasures Pavilion said, his voice tinged with a sense of admiration. "Before this child joined our Lu family, he hadn't started cultivating, nor could he possibly have had any exposure to talisman making. Under such circumstances, this indeed qualifies as a rare talent." Lu Yuanding nodded thoughtfully. "This Lu Changxing is truly commendable. During this year within our family, he has proven to be diligent. While other promising youths are still not willing to have children, Lu Changxing has already impregnated 5 women in our Lu family." At this point, Uncle Fu spoke up as well. Lu Changxing comes from a peasant background. Before he began cultivation, it would have already been an achievement for him to marry one wife. Given such an opportunity now, faced with the allure of women, how could he restrain himself? Lu Yuanding laughed lightly without much concern. He continued, "However, Since this child comes from a peasant background and is willing to marry and have children, it shows that he is relatively simple and easy to control. Since he also possesses such talent for talisman making, we can consider officially accepting him as a disciple of the Lu family. Uncle Fu, go find Miaoga and let her assess Lu Changsheng's talent and skills in talisman making. If he is indeed as worthy as Uncle Gue suggests, then we shall nurture him accordingly. Still, this child has been with our Lu family for just over a year and certainly hasn't developed a deep allegiance yet, so we need to observe him more. Lu Yuanding muttered thoughtfully. Yes, family head, Uncle Fu responded, bowing his hands in acknowledgement. That day, Lu Changxing was practicing his cultivation when he heard from his wife Lu Lanshu that Uncle Fu and the young mistress had come to visit. He immediately got up and went to the hall. Inside the hall, two figures were seated. One was the manager of Jianghu Villa, Uncle Fu. The other was a woman about 18 or 19 years of age. The woman's jet black hair was tied up simply, and she wore a pure white-on-snow dress. Her slender and curvaceous figure sat on the chair with elegance and dignity. She was extremely beautiful, pure as snow, adorned in a snow-white dress. Combined with her ethereal aura, she resembled a Tianshan snow lotus, sanctified and flawless. This woman was none other than the one Lu Changxing had met and remembered by name when he came to Jianghu Mountain a year ago. Lu Miaoga. She was also the very Miss Lanshu had referred to. The other party looked exactly the same as when Lu Changxing had seen her a year ago. Not a single change had occurred. Lu Changxing glanced at her and then diverted his gaze. Now that the system's effects were beginning to show, and with the skills of a second-grade talisman master, Changxing's thoughts were clear. He believed that through hard work, his future achievements would not fall short. In the face of this miss, unlike the first time he met her when he felt she was out of reach, now she seemed within grasp. He clasped his hands in a bow and said, "Uncle Fu, miss?" He felt a bit strange in his heart that Uncle Fu would come over. But what could the daughter of the family head, the miss of the Lu family, possibly want by coming here? Someone like Lu Miaoga would ordinarily reside in the core area of Jianghu Mountain and would not bother coming to Jianghu Villa at all. Lu Changxing, I heard from Gue that you've been learning talisman making recently and are now an apprentice in talisman making? Upon seeing Changxing arrive, Uncle Fu started to speak. Gue. Lu Changxing was taken aback when he heard the name. It's the shopkeeper from the 100 Treasures Pavilion. Uncle Fu reminded him. The shopkeeper from the 100 Treasures Pavilion is named Gue? Lu Changxing found this quite odd and also had a vague understanding of what was going on. It must be because of the talent he had shown in talisman making. He immediately replied, I only have a 9th grade spiritual root and am well aware that cultivation is hopeless for me. I thought it would be better to learn a craft, so I've been practicing talisman making all this while. Currently, I can draw 3 basic talismans. It's very good that you have this mindset. Your performance over this past year since you joined the Lu family has not escaped my attention. Therefore, the Miss and I have come to see how your talisman making skill is. If it's as Gue has mentioned, and you possess a talent for talisman making, the family will naturally provide certain support and cultivation, Uncle Fu praised and said. Lu Changxing thought to himself as expected. He immediately showed a grateful expression and clasped his hands in thanks. Thank you, Miss, and thank you, Uncle Fu. Which talismans can you draw now? At this moment, Lu Miaoga, who was seated elegantly on the side, turned her beautiful eyes towards Lu Changxing and asked. Her voice was as refreshing as a flowing spring, very pleasing to the ear. Reporting to the Miss, the talismans I can draw are the Cleansing Talisman, Garment Purification Talisman, and Dust Avoidance Talisman, Lu Changxing replied with his hands clasped. Show me how you draw the Garment Purification Talisman and the Dust Avoidance Talisman. Lu Miaoga stood up, displaying her svelte figure wrapped in a snowy white dress, took out a set of talisman-making tools and materials from her storage bag, and laid them out on the table. Yes. Lu Changxing pursed his lips, approached the table, and immediately smelled a faint fragrance, which was the body scent of the Mississippi. He suppressed his distractions and picked up the brush from the table. This brush wasn't the same as the wolf hair brush he had bought before. It was a golden yellow brush. The handle and the tip emitted a pale yellow light, and the end of the handle was engraved with the words golden bamboo. Lu Changxing recognized at a glance that it was an exquisite brush. Without a second thought, he lightly dipped the tip in the ink beside him and began to draw the Garment Purification Talisman. During this moment, Changxing did not draw as he usually did while making talismans, fast and fluid like a swift wind. Instead, he appeared very tense and his drawing was rigidly slow. Soon after, a garment purification talisman was completed. Lu Changxing glanced at Lu Miaoge, who stood gracefully tall, and continued to draw the dust avoidance talisman. Just as he was about to finish the almost complete dust avoidance talisman, his hand trembled slightly at the moment of concluding the lines, interrupting the spiritual mechanism and causing a wisp of blue smoke to rise from the talisman paper. "I'm sorry, miss, I was a bit nervous just now," Lu Changxing quickly said. Of course he was acting. He had previously told the shopkeeper from the 100 Treasures Pavilion that he was only about 30% confident with the dust avoidance talisman. Under the current circumstances he was about to succeed, but due to excessive nervousness he ultimately failed. Isn't that quite normal? Chapter 12, The Second Lottery. _1, it's fine, I can see that you are already capable of drawing the dust avoidance talisman. When sketching the talisman lines for the dust avoidance talisman, you need to touch and place gently to express a sense of smoothness. At the end, the brushstroke needs to turn with a bit of a tuck, which would enhance your success rate in making the talisman. Lu Miaoge spoke to comfort him, her voice soft and gentle like water, calming one's heart. Is the young lady a talisman master? Hearing Lu Miaoge's professional terminology, Lu Changxing suddenly realized. No wonder Uncle Fu came with this young lady to assess me. So this young lady is also a talisman master. Indeed, if she weren't a talisman master, why would she carry a top-notch talisman brush with her all the time? Just now he was wondering why Lu Miaoge always carried a top-notch talisman brush with her. Now that I know she's professional, I've got to perform a bit more convincingly. May I ask the young lady, what does tuck mean? Lu Changxing asked with an eagerness to learn. The techniques of talisman making like dot, place, touch, tuck, flick, slide, flash. Don't you know them? Lu Miaoge asked with her eyebrows slightly furrowed in a soft voice. I've only read an introductory book on talismans and a comprehensive guide to basic talismans. I've been studying on my own based on the books without learning these specific techniques you mentioned, Lu Changxing said, his face showing embarrassment. Upon hearing these words, Lu Miaoge's lips pursed lightly, finding herself at a loss for what to say. Without any guidance, without learning any specific techniques, he managed to practice talisman making to this extent just by reading 2 basic books on talismans. This talent? Even she could not help feeling inferior. I have a book here, Essentials of Talismans, which has instructions on talisman making techniques, the use of spiritual power, as well as some insights I've annotated. Take it and read it well, and if there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me. Lu Miaoge took out a book from her storage bag and handed it to Lu Changxing. Thank you very much, young lady. Lu Changxing gratefully accepted the kindness and thanked her enthusiastically. Then he cautiously added, Young lady, should I redraw another one? No need, you have already passed the assessment. Lu Miaoge replied with a demure temperament, putting the talisman brush and spirit ink back into her storage bag, and then called out to Uncle Fu. Alright, Lu Changxing, since you possess this talent for talisman making, starting this month, your monthly resources will be increased to 5 spirit stones and 30 gene of spirit rice, Uncle Fu declared. Then, taking out a set of talisman making tools from his storage bag, he added, Also, this set of talisman making tools is for you. Keep up the hard work, and as long as you can become an elementary talisman master, our Lu family will definitely not treat you unfairly. As he spoke, Uncle Fu affectionately patted Lu Changxing's shoulder. Yes, thank you, young lady. Thank you, Uncle Fu. Lu Changxing expressed his thanks. Soon after, Uncle Fu and Lu Miaoge left. Lu Changxing immediately saw them out, escorting them to the door. Watching Lu Miaoge's retreating figure, dressed in white as snow, Lu Changxing shook his head slightly. Unless necessary, I should avoid contact with this young lady as much as possible. As a man and a LSP, it would be impossible for him to say he had no thoughts about this ethereal and refined young lady. But they say that beauties are trouble. For such a rare beauty, there must be no shortage of men within and outside the Lu family who admire and secretly love her. If I were to approach the young lady under the pretext of seeking talisman advice, who knows whether her admirers would come looking for me to cause trouble. So, to be cautious and prudent, it's better not to make contact. If contact is to be made, it will be when I've gained some strength. Then wouldn't it be wonderful to explore the path of talismans together? One must endure the common to become an immortal above immortals. This is the motto Lu Changxing has set for himself. Meanwhile, Lu Lanshu, Lu Zier, Lu Qing'er and the other ladies, upon seeing Uncle Fu and Lu Miaoge leave, hurried forward to ask Lu Changxing why Uncle Fu and the young lady had come to visit. Uncle Fu, being the manager of Jianghu Villa, holds an extraordinary position. Moreover, coming here with the young lady Lu Miaoga, it surely wasn't a trivial matter. Lu Changxing didn't hide anything from his wives and told them the whole story. The ladies were overjoyed to hear that their husband had been recognized by the Lu family because of his talent for talisman making. After all, as Lu Changxing's status in the Lu family rises as his wives, they too would benefit, their status rising with the tide. At the same time, Uncle Fu, after leaving Qingzhou Villa, asked Lu Miaoga, "Young lady, how is Lu Changxing's talent for talisman making, and how long do you think it will take him to become a talisman master?" Although he was a cultivator, his understanding of talisman making was not thorough. "His talent for talisman making is very high, even higher than mine." Lu Miaoga pressed her lips together and said softly, "What?" Uncle Fu showed a surprised expression upon hearing this. Their young lady, now 24 years old, was already a first-grade middle-grade talisman master. Within 20 years she could aspire to reach the second rank. But now she said that Lu Changxing's talent in talisman making was even higher than hers. Doesn't that mean that Lu Changxing's future achievements in the talisman path could also reach the level of a second-grade talisman master? This was simply astonishing. If they knew that Lu Changxing had already become a second-grade talisman master, and not just any second-grade talisman master, but a second-tier top-level talisman master, one wonders what they would think. The next day, the news that Lu Changxing had become an apprentice in talisman making quickly spread throughout Qingzhou Villa. It shocked many of the Lu family disciples and the other cultivators, who looked upon Lu Changxing with envy, jealousy, and hatred. Nobody had thought that such an insignificant son-in-law would possess such an extraordinary talent in talisman making. Previously, many cultivators had sneered upon hearing about Lu Changxing's involvement in talisman making, thinking that he was indulging in a fantasy. But today numerous cultivators came to congratulate Lu Changxing at his home. Each offered him a spirit stone as a congratulatory gift. Li Feiyu also gave a spirit stone as a congratulatory gift, but afterwards it was returned by Lu Changxing. He now had 5 spirit stones and 30 caddies of spirit rice a month. Whereas Li Feiyu still received 2 spirit stones and 10 caddies of spirit rice, so how could he in good conscience accept the money? As for the spirit stones from other cultivators, he certainly didn't return those. Having gained 10 spirit stones, he felt very pleased. He also examined the talisman-making tools Uncle Fu had given him the day before. A common talisman brush, but a grade better than a wolf hair talisman brush, probably good for 300 to 500 uses. Thereafter were 10 stacks of talisman paper and 2 boxes of spirit ink, the quality the same as what he had previously purchased. If converted to spirit stones, they were worth roughly 60 to 70 spirit stones. This reward, combined with the improved benefits of 5 spirit stones and 30 caddies of spirit rice a month, was a very satisfying haul. Thinking back to Uncle Fu and the young lady coming over to increase his benefits, Lu Changxing realized it was the 100 Treasures Pavilion shopkeeper who had helped. Lu Changxing made a few basic talismans as gifts and went to thank him in person. He understood such social graces. Meanwhile, 5 days later, Lu Changxing's concubine who was expecting twins gave birth. They were 2 boys. Since he had known early on that they would be twins, Lu Changxing did not show too much surprise. Moreover, now the father of 4 children, Lu Changxing had grown used to seeing births and no longer felt the initial tension and excitement. He had become much more composed than before. However, it was at the birth of the twins that he heard the system's notification sound, which brought him a surge of excitement. Ding! Congratulations to the host for the first birth of twin offspring, granting you 1 lottery draw opportunity. First twin offspring. It seems this system's achievements are similar to those in some games from my former world. As long as something happens for the first time in certain regards, or a certain number is reached, the system gives out a child money gift. Upon hearing the system's notification, Lu Changxing felt excited, pondering this to himself. After looking at his twin boys, Lu Changxing went to his study and muttered to himself, "System, I want to do the lottery draw." Instantly, a pale red virtual lottery wheel identical to the last one appeared. It was divided into 7 zones: cultivation technique, skills, pet beasts, elixir medicines, magical treasures, and others. I wonder what it'll draw this time. Lu Changxing took a deep breath, filled with anticipation. After all, the second-grade talisman-making skill from before had been a very pleasant surprise. Begin the lottery draw. With that said, a streak of golden light began to spin on the pale red wheel. Under Lu Changxing's hopeful gaze, the golden light slowly came to a halt, finally resting on the cultivation technique sector. Chapter 13. Immortal Beauty Technique. _1, ding, congratulations to the host for acquiring the Immortal Beauty Technique. The reward has been delivered to the system space, and the host can check it at any time. A crystal-clear jade scroll pattern emerged, accompanied by the system notification sound. Immortal Beauty Technique? Lu Changxing furrowed his brows slightly as he looked at this reward. Why does the name sound so strange? He stirred his mental spirit and checked the Immortal Beauty Technique in the system space. Instantly, a surge of information appeared. All things in the world have their beauty and ugliness, and the appearance of people, their outer expressions and tones, are innate, but everyone has the right to pursue beauty. This technique, called Immortal Beauty Technique, is designed to let everyone pursue an unrivaled immortal beauty. Cultivation Technique, Immortal Beauty Technique, Grade, Peripheral Sect Level, Description. In ancient times there was an incredibly talented and beautiful individual known as the Heavenly Weeping Elder. Born with an unattractive and repulsive visage, he suffered countless disdainful hardships on his path of cultivation. Thus, with immense wisdom and perseverance, he created the Immortal Beauty Technique. Cultivating this method can improve one's physical appearance and charm, transforming bone beneath the skin and altering voice and appearance, enhancing charisma and preserving eternal youth. After seeing the information about the technique, Lu Changxing felt somewhat. He hadn't expected his second lottery to yield such a trifling cultivation technique. The Immortal Beauty Technique, after cultivation, aside from making one look more attractive, sounding nicer, enhancing temperament and charm, and maintaining everlasting youth, had no other effects. Although Lu Changxing thought it was not bad, under his current circumstances, wouldn't any proper cultivation technique be better than this type of technique? How bored must someone be to create such a trifling technique, he wondered. What a waste of a peripheral sect level technique. Lu Changxing shook his head and sighed deeply, feeling very regretful. According to his understanding in the cultivation world, techniques were classified as primary level, advanced level, exquisite level, peripheral sect level, orthodox level. The returning origin technique that he was cultivating was a primary level cultivation technique. And the core technique of the Lu family, he heard, was an advanced level cultivation technique. Now he had acquired a peripheral sect level technique. A technique 2 levels higher than the Lu family's core technique turned out to be an auxiliary technique that was of no help in cultivation or combat. This caused Lu Changxing to feel very uncomfortable, almost nauseous. Although it's trifling, it can't be said to be completely useless. At least it has the effect of keeping one's youth forever, and being handsome and charismatic indeed makes it easier to win people's good favor, bringing many advantages. I remember in my previous life I played a cultivation game where there was a play style called living off a wealthy patroness where you rely on good looks to latch onto rich ladies and big shots. If in the future I could find some fairy who's a few thousand years older than me, my path to immortality would be smooth sailing. Lu Changxing took a deep breath, beginning to comfort himself. Then he stirred his mental spirit and used the technique directly to inherit it. Immediately, detailed information about the Immortal Beauty Technique and the method of cultivation flooded into Lu Changxing's mind. Tsk, to think being ugly could be so difficult, no wonder the Heavenly Weeping Elder created such a technique. After comprehensively understanding the technique, Lu Changxing voiced a sigh of realization. According to the records in this technique, it classifies a person's appearance into 7 levels: revolting, ugly, odd, ordinary, outstanding, transcendent, and immortal beauty. And the appearance of the creator, the Heavenly Weeping Elder, fell into the revolting and ugly category. This also led to his suffering of countless disdainful hardships on his cultivation journey. After all, with such a visage, one tends to be perceived as untrustworthy. Not only are people generally reluctant to interact, but also, in the event of any trouble, suspicions easily fall upon him. Some even despised him for being too ugly, feeling that their eyes were polluted, and directly resorted to violence. It truly spelled a massive tragedy. In his past and current life, Lu Changxing, though not exceptionally handsome, was not ugly either. So, he could hardly relate to the Heavenly Weeping Elder's resolve in creating this technique. But having understood the creator's heart and the technique's purpose, he gained some insight. Fortunately, cultivating this technique won't require much effort and won't interfere with my cultivation. Otherwise, given my current situation, it would be unwise to spend time and energy cultivating such a technique. Lu Changxing breathed out lightly, preparing to cultivate the Immortal Beauty Technique. Although he had no obsessions about his looks, if he could be more handsome and maintain eternal youth, why not? Being more attractive, perhaps he'd even get fairies to take initiative in the future. Besides, as an old saying from his previous life goes, since he's here, he might as well enjoy it. Since I obtained the cultivation technique, not practicing it would seem like a huge waste, wouldn't it? The main thing is that this particular technique is very simple to cultivate with two methods of practice. One method is through meditation, drawing in spiritual energy to wander through the body, slowly refining and improving imperfections and flaws in one's appearance. The other method involves using the essence of the 5 elements: spiritual gold, spiritual wood, spiritual water, spiritual fire, and spiritual earth, to establish a foundation. With this, there would be no need for me to cultivate on my own. The essence of the 5 elements within would auto-operate the technique, cleansing the body and enhancing my condition. Plainly speaking, as time passes, a person would keep getting more handsome. Furthermore, the essence of these 5 elements doesn't set high standards. Ordinary first and second rank spiritual materials would suffice. There's no need for heaven-sent treasures or rare spiritual objects. The higher the quality of the materials, the better the effect. However, Lu Changxing could only use the first method for the time being, because he couldn't afford even the first-grade spiritual materials. Immediately after that, Lu Changxing began cultivating the immortal beauty technique. One night passed, and the next day, Lu Changxing looked at himself in the mirror. Although his appearance was exactly the same as before, he always felt as if he had become a lot more handsome. After looking at himself for half an hour, Lu Changxing stopped. Self-aware as he was, he knew this was an illusion. It's just like how you always feel thinner immediately after a run. And this immortal beauty technique, although a peripheral sect-level technique, isn't that miraculous. It's not like practicing it will transform one from ugly and loathsome to peerlessly divine. Only that by cultivating this technique, one's facial features, bone structure, and skin, among other things, would subtly and quietly improve for the better. Once the improvement reaches a certain level and one's own limit, there would be no more effect. It's not like there are different layers, and once you reach a certain layer, you become divine in appearance. If there were a standard for peerless beauty and everyone cultivated toward that aspect, wouldn't it be awkward to end up all looking like clones? Such individuals wouldn't deserve the title of peerless beauty then. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, more than a month passed. Because his talent for talisman making became apparent, his standard of living improved quite a bit, and Lu Changxing was in good physical and mental shape. Therefore, in this month, by putting in a little effort, he managed to get one of the 2 maids who had yet to be taken as concubines pregnant. Thinking that once both women were pregnant, Uncle Fu would send more girls his way, Lu Changxing didn't wait for Uncle Fu to take the initiative. Instead, he proactively went to Uncle Fu to discuss the matter of taking concubines. After all, talisman making was reasonably well managed. It was in taking wives, accepting concubines, and producing children that one finds the true principle of life. Having tasted the sweetness from 2 system lottery draws, Lu Changxing was eager for more. When Uncle Fu learned of Lu Changxing's intentions and heard what he said, he fell silent. Even after a year and a half, other immortal seedlings were still somewhat resistant to marriage and childbearing. Yet, Lu Changxing not only did not resist but also actively expressed his desire to take more concubines, catching him off guard. But after a moment of silence, Uncle Fu agreed. He asked Lu Changxing about his preferences, saying he would send 2 over to him later. He pointed out, however, that with these 2, Lu Changxing would have married 9, and so there would be no more, and he could not take any additional concubines in the future. Additionally, because of Lu Changxing's talent for talisman making, Uncle Fu also took the opportunity to offer some advice. He urged Lu Changxing not to be too indulgent in pleasures of the flesh, and to focus more on the talisman path. Because of the talisman making talent displayed by Lu Changxing over the past year and a half, as well as his farmer origins, the Lu family was already considering integrating him as one of their own. Whether or not he fathers 50 children had become less important. If Lu Changxing were to become obsessed with his passions and neglect his proper business, squandering his own abilities, Uncle Fu as the steward would have a hard time explaining himself. To this, Lu Changxing readily agreed, feeling that 9 was indeed enough. If it were possible to have 1 child a year, he could have 9 in a single year. 10 days later, Uncle Fu sent 2 young women from the Lu family to Lu Changxing, fulfilling the promise of concubines he had made. He also sent over 4 elderly nursemaids to take care of Lu Changxing's family, to do laundry, cook, and look after the children. Seeing the 4 nursemaids who were all in their 40s or 50s, Lu Changxing sighed deeply. He felt as if he had been slighted. The attendants and maids sent to serve him in the past had all been young women, but now they were old nursemaids. It seemed that these were indeed the last 2. Chapter 14. Qi Refinement Level 2. _1/2 a year later. Qi Refinement Second Level. In the practice room, Lu Changsheng's robe fluttered without any wind as he emerged from his meditative state and expelled a breath of turbid air, his face revealing a joyful expression. After a year and a half of arduous cultivation, he had finally broken through from the first level of Qi refinement to the second level. The process had taken such a long time partly because he had been delayed by both child-rearing and talisman making. Otherwise, with his current monthly resource of 5 spirit stones and the occasional purchase of some spiritual tea and spiritual medicine to supplement his practice, he would have progressed in his cultivation as well. However, Lu Changxing felt that the delay was worthwhile. During the past 6 months, Lu Changxing had taken the 7th concubine and 2 women from the Lu family, who were sent over by Uncle Fu as his wives, and all of them were successfully pregnant. Meanwhile, Lu Lanshu, Lu Zier, and Lu Qing'er were all expecting their second child as well. In half a year's time, Lu Changxing had 6 more children on the way. This caused Uncle Fu, who had always been keeping an eye on Lu Changxing's situation, to come over and advise him to exercise restraint when it came to pleasures of the flesh, emphasizing that there was no rush with having children. As for talisman making, he had drawn over 200 talismans in the past 6 months. 50 of these were made into basic talismans, which he took to the 100 Treasures Pavilion to exchange and supplement his household expenses. He also expressed to Uncle Fu that he was already 50 to 60% confident in succeeding in making peace charms. He estimated that in a few months he would be able to attempt making first-grade talismans. As soon as he could successfully draw a lower-grade first-grade talisman, he would be considered an elementary talisman master. At the Qi Refinement second level, my spiritual power is nearly twice as dense as it was at the first level. Now, drawing middle-grade first-level talismans poses no difficulty for me. It's not like before when drawing a single middle-grade talisman would leave me nearly depleted, and drawing more difficult talismans would result in failure. If I had the materials, I could even try to draw some superior-grade first-level talismans for self-defense. Lu Changxing stood up, feeling the spiritual power within his Danshan Sea of Qi. The bottleneck in his talisman drawing was not his skills but rather his own cultivation level. As long as his cultivation reached the threshold for talisman making, he would be able to successfully draw talismans. However, his current tools and materials limited him to drawing only middle-grade first-level talismans and did not yet allow him to attempt superior-grade first-level talismans. Even though he had maxed out second-rank talisman-making skill, without the necessary materials, he would be like a skilled woman without rice, unable to cook. If he were to go to the 100 Treasures Pavilion to purchase high-level talisman-making materials, he would not know how to explain it, as he didn't have the extra money. I can also try to cultivate spells now. Otherwise, apart from talismans, I have no other means. Lu Changxing murmured to himself. He had not yet cultivated any techniques. Apart from using talismans, he was essentially powerless. And on the path of cultivation, conflicts and battles were inevitable. Even if Lu Changxing didn't wish to compete or fight and only wanted to live a peaceful life marrying and having children, trouble would still find its way to him. Counting on just getting by safely all the way was impossible, a clear case of self-deception. But there's no need to hurry. As long as I don't leave the Lu family, there shouldn't be any danger for now. Lu Changxing shook his head, left the practice room, and went to relax and play with his children. No sooner had he picked up a child to go to the courtyard than he saw Li Feiyu arrive. He playfully addressed his eldest son in his arms, "Come, call him Uncle Li." However, the child was only a little over a year old and could only babble repetitive syllables. "Changxing, congratulations on breaking through to the second level of Qi refinement." Li Feiyu congratulated Lu Changxing as he approached. He lived next door to Lu Changxing. Just now, while practicing martial arts in the courtyard, he had sensed the fluctuation of spiritual energy here and knew that Lu Changxing had broken through to the Qi refinement second level. "Hey, it's about time I made the breakthrough," Lu Changxing responded with a chuckle. Li Feiyu, possessing a 7th grade spiritual root and dedicating himself completely to cultivation without wasting time on the distractions of women, had made his breakthrough to the second level of Qi refinement half a year ago. "Changxing, why do I feel like you've gotten a lot fairer than before and you look quite a bit better overall? What have you been doing?" At this moment, Li Feiyu looked at Lu Changxing, who was holding his child, and suddenly remarked with a click of his tongue. Although the two lived next door, they only got together once every month or two. "Oh really?" Hearing Li Feiyu's words, Lu Changxing paused for a moment. He immediately thought that it must be the effect of cultivating the immortal beauty technique. Although he did not pay much attention to this cultivation technique, he would still cultivate it whenever he remembered. Cultivating qi refinement does have the effect of cleansing the marrow and reshaping one's features, but in the early stages, there isn't much improvement in terms of appearance and changes to the fairness of the skin. Soon Lu Changxing said nonchalantly, maybe it's because I used to do farm work, but now I've been living a life of luxury, and it's also the age when I'm growing, so naturally I've become a bit more well-nourished. Tsk, originally the two of us together were like a beautiful flower paired with green leaves. If you keep this up, won't I lose my ability to set you off? Li Feiyu teased. Get lost. Wait a few more years, and you will be the green leaves that set me off. Lu Changxing laughed and cursed. The next day, Lu Changxing came to the Lu family's library, spent a spirit stone, and rented the primary level spells introduction, to start cultivating spells. ZZZT. In the practice room, Lu Changxing extended a finger of his right hand, and sparks and fire stars appeared half an inch above his fingertip. But just as the spark formed a fireball, it extinguished. The spell Lu Changxing was practicing was one of the primary spells, the flame bullet technique. It allowed the release of a small fireball to be shot out. However, this spell was not easy to practice. Not only did it require the cooperation of spiritual power, but also the chanting of a mantra. And this mantra was not something like shouting flame bullet technique. It was a series of ancient and obscure syllables. Coordinating them with spiritual power was very awkward, so even after practicing for so long, Lu Changxing still hadn't gotten the hang of it. After practicing for an hour, Lu Changxing's spiritual power was nearly depleted, and he began to sit and rest in meditation. And so, practicing spells became another part of Lu Changxing's daily life. A month later. Crackle. A red fireball the size of a thumb appeared on Lu Changxing's fingertip. The fireball was not large, but it emitted an intense heat, causing the temperature in the practice room to rise. Looking at the small fireball on his fingertip, Lu Changxing continued to pour spiritual power into it, letting the flames of the small fireball start to grow. When the small fireball reached the size of an egg, Lu Changxing's fingertip holding the fireball began to quiver. With a sharp flick of his finger, he targeted the front target and released the flame bullet. Bang! The flame bullet hit the target, and in an instant, it melted the fine iron-made target into molten iron. Phew! No wonder Feiyu said that the strength of a martial Dao innate is only comparable to the third-level energy refinement. In front of such a fireball, even if one's martial skills are high, a direct hit would undoubtedly be fatal. After seeing the power of the flame bullet technique, Lu Changxing felt somewhat emotional. He thought back to the confrontation between the Lu family and the Qin family on the road to Jianghu Mountain. The spells released by both sides were much faster than his own. And they could release multiple fireballs, water arrows, and wind blades at once, which was very difficult to defend against. But this spell is too difficult. I've only mastered a single flame bullet technique after a whole month. There's also the wind control skill, object manipulating technique, spiritual eye technique, sound transmitting technique, aura concealment technique, and a whole bunch of other basic spells. How long is it going to take to learn all of these? Lu Changxing took a deep breath, shaking his head in frustration. If an elementary spell took so much time, what about more advanced spells? Cultivation truly consumes a great deal of time, effort, and money. This made him think of the talisman-making skill he had obtained. He now understood why such a skill was so precious and sought after. It wasn't just because of the difficulty. Cultivation itself was already a massive drain on time, effort, and finances. To practice an additional skill meant to spend even more time, effort, and money. Most cultivators simply did not have the time, effort, or finances to practice other things. They could only focus on cultivating one aspect. Chapter 15. Talisman Treasure, Golden Light Brick. _ 2 months later. Lu Changxing welcomed his 7th child into the world. Standing outside the delivery room as soon as he heard the cries from within, his spirits lifted, and a look of surprise and joy appeared on his face. But in the next moment, his eyes revealed a complex mixture of emotions. At the moment of the child's birth, Lu Changxing himself felt a profound and ineffable connection. Spiritual root. It was his own spiritual root that was throbbing. At the same time, the sound of a system notification confirmed that it was not his imagination. Congratulations to the host for the first birth of a child with a spiritual root, granting you one chance to draw a reward. My previous guess was correct. If a child possesses a spiritual root, it exists from birth, though still unformed, requiring growth and development until it stabilizes and manifests around the age of 5 or 6, when it can be detected. Having the system, the child's spiritual root contributes to my own, so I sensed it the moment this child was born with it. This also means that my previous 6 children, none of them have a spiritual root. Lu Changxing, knowing his child possessed a spiritual root, naturally felt great excitement and joy. After all, only with a spiritual root could a child embark on the path of cultivation. Only then could the talent of the spiritual root be added to his own, accelerating his cultivation speed. However, having the lack of spiritual roots in his other 6 children confirmed also complicated Lu Changxing's feelings, causing him some distress. Although he had been prepared for this possibility, facing the reality still brought discomfort. Without a spiritual root, the child would have no choice but to lead an ordinary life, and he would have to watch each of his children go through life and death. This was one of the cruel truths of the cultivation world. "Husband, what's the matter?" Lu Lanxu, standing beside him, noticed Lu Changxing suddenly become absent-minded and asked with concern. "It's nothing, I just suddenly thought of something." Lu Changxing shook his head, dispersing the thoughts from his mind. Birth, aging, illness, and death are the natural ways of life. It's not only the children without spiritual roots. All of his wives and concubines lacked spiritual roots as well. They would also eventually go through life and death before his eyes. Even though he had the system and could practice cultivation, it didn't guarantee that he would achieve immortality and witness longevity. So why worry about so much for now? With the system present, if his children could all step onto the path of immortality in the future, nothing could be better. If not, as their father, he could still ensure that his children would face as little suffering as possible in their growth, giving them a good environment to live a happy and contented life. "Congratulations, son-in-law, it's a little master." At that moment, a midwife walked out, holding a baby wrapped in a blanket. "A son? A son is good, as my first child to possess a spiritual root. He may have to endure some hardships following me on the cultivation path." Lu Changxing took the child, looking at the swaddled, ruddy and wrinkled baby, his face showing a hint of a smile. "Let's name this child Xianxia." Lu Changxing lifted the child high and said softly. This was his first child born with a spiritual root. He hoped that this child could follow him on the path of cultivation into the future and eventually attain immortality. Xianxia? Lu Lanxu, Lu Zier, and a few other women were somewhat surprised at the name. In the past, Lu Changxing's names for his children were always based on themes like peace, joy, comfort, and tranquility. Why did he suddenly change his approach for this child? Seeing the expressions of the women, Lu Changxing paused for a moment and then chuckled. "I was planning to tell you all later, but today I have successfully drawn a first-grade talisman and have become an elementary talisman master. It is akin to taking the first step on the path of cultivation. Since my son was born today, naming him Xianxia is also a wish for him to step onto the path of cultivation in the future." Lu Changxing found a reason to explain. It was an explanation for the women but also for the Lu family. Just in case it turned out that only this child among all his children happened to have a spiritual root, it could raise suspicions and lead to unnecessary conjecture. "Congratulations, husband." "Congratulations, my husband. Today is truly a double blessing. The husband has just become a talisman master, and now the child is born, such an auspicious sign." Upon hearing these words, the joy immediately spread across the faces of the women as they congratulated Lu Changxing. Under his influence they had come to know a lot about talisman making. They knew that with their husband becoming an elementary talisman master, his status in the Lu family would henceforth be greatly different. As his wives and concubines, their status would also rise with the tide. The family entered the birthing room full of joy, to visit the concubine who had given birth to the child. This concubine was named Lu Yuzhu. Upon hearing the news that Lu Changxing had become a talisman master and the name of her son, she was also extremely delighted. After a brief chat, everyone left the birthing room. Lu Changxing handed the child over to Lu Lanxu and went to his study for his third lucky draw. "System, I want to draw a prize." It was still that familiar prize wheel. Having gone through 2 draws before, Lu Changxing looked at the prize wheel with the same mix of nervous anticipation. "I hope it won't give me another immortal beauty technique like before. Give me something useful." With a silent prayer in his heart, Lu Changxing muttered, "Start the draw." Immediately, a golden light began to spin on the pale red wheel. Under Lu Changxing's expectant gaze, the golden light slowly came to a halt, finally stopping above the treasure column of the draw. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the talisman treasure golden light brick. The reward has been dispatched to the system space. The host can check it at any time. A talisman paper with the image of a golden brick shimmering in golden light appeared along with the system's notification. Talisman treasure? Upon hearing this notification, Lu Changxing was instantly overjoyed. He had seen information about talisman treasures in a Lu family book. This was an item that bridged the gap between talisman and magical treasures. It sealed a portion of a magical treasure's power within a specially made talisman, allowing lower-level cultivators to temporarily unleash the power of magical treasures. However, only 10 to 20% of the original magical treasure's power. But 10 to 20% was already a lot. After all, these are magical treasures, the kind that only a nascent soul immortal could use. For an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator, it already possessed an overwhelming lethality. Talisman treasures were incredibly rare and priceless, and Lu Changxing had only read about them in books. He never imagined he would actually draw one. Lu Changxing immediately checked the talisman treasure in the system space. Talisman treasure, golden light brick. Description: a talisman treasure refined by the immortal golden light from his high-grade magical treasure golden light brick. Using it will produce a golden brick that attacks enemies, possessing 20% of the golden light brick's power. Note: the full power can be unleashed 3 times if used by a cultivator at the foundation establishment stage using their mana. A cultivator at the Qi refinement realm can only exert part of the power with their spiritual power. Refined from a high-grade magical treasure, this indicates that the power of this talisman treasure is stronger than ordinary ones. Lu Changxing, looking at the information about this talisman treasure, was ecstatic. Talisman treasures were refined by nascent soul immortals using their own magical treasures. Naturally, the power would vary according to the grade and quality of the magical treasures. Like this golden light brick talisman treasure, being refined from a high-grade magical treasure, it indicated that its power was among the higher ranks of talisman treasures. With full power unleashed, I can use it 3 times before this talisman treasure becomes ineffective. Using my current cultivation at the Qi refinement realm, it'll be able to exert only 10 to 20% of its power, which should allow me about 10 or so uses, right? Lu Changxing thought to himself. Each use of a talisman treasure would consume some of the power sealed within it. Once its power is exhausted, the talisman treasure will naturally become ineffective. Unless one finds the original magical treasure to nourish and replenish its power, it cannot be repaired. This talisman treasure drawn from the system naturally had no one to repair it. Additionally, not many nascent soul immortals were willing to expend their magical treasure's power to refine talisman treasures. Mostly, it was the nascent soul immortals nearing the end of their lives about to transcend, who would do so to leave something valuable for self-defense for their descendants and successors. Chapter 16, The Child's Spiritual Root. _1 Lu Changxing's thoughts stirred, and he extracted the golden brick talisman treasure from his system space. Immediately, a talisman inscribed with the image of a golden brick materialized in his hand out of thin air. This talisman felt much smoother and more substantial than the ordinary ones he usually drew. The pattern of the golden brick on it shone with a twinkling light, seemingly alive. With the knowledge of a second-grade talisman master, Lu Changxing could tell at a glance that the material of this talisman treasure was made from the fur of high-ranked demon beasts. The standard talisman paper he currently used was mostly made from lower-grade spiritual materials. For instance, the abundant Jianghu bamboo on Jianghu Mountain was one such lower-grade spiritual material. Whereas advanced, top-quality talisman paper required entry-grade spiritual materials or demon beast fur. The materials needed to draw second-rank talismans were the same. One had to use first and second-grade spiritual materials as raw materials to create talisman paper and spiritual ink. This was one of the reasons why it became increasingly difficult for a talisman master as one progressed. Not only was it harder to advance, but the cost of materials was also high. To improve one's skills, one had to continuously pour money into this bottomless pit. With this talisman treasure, I now have a trump card and can protect my life when facing anyone below the foundation establishment stage, Lu Changxing murmured as he carefully stored the treasure. Even if a Qi refinement realm cultivator could only unleash part of its power, it was enough for him at the moment. Just like how a mere 10% of a nascent soul immortal's magical treasure's power could easily crush a cultivator at the foundation establishment stage, when he, a Qi refinement realm cultivator, used a talisman treasure, even a fragment of its power was enough to overwhelm his peers in the Qi refinement realm. Tomorrow I'll tell Uncle Fu that I can now refine first-grade lower-quality talismans. Lu Changxing glanced at the night sky outside the window, which had darkened. It had been a year and a half since he first purchased talisman-making materials from 100 Treasures Pavilion. In this year and a half, he had bought talisman paper and drawn talismans amounting to 560 in total. The time was ripe. He had also intended to reveal his status as an elementary talisman master around this time. Since he had discussed his son Lu Xianxi's situation with his wives today, there was no need to wait any longer. Thinking of his son Lu Xianxi, Lu Changxing suddenly remembered his own spiritual root. His spiritual root had experienced a mysterious tremor the moment his son was born. But since then until now he had felt nothing. I wonder what grade of spiritual root my son possesses. And to what extent has my spiritual root changed under his innate enhancement? Lu Changxing pondered silently. Spiritual roots are an abstract indicator of one's aptitude for cultivation. They are not an extra organ within the body that can be seen. According to what he had read in books, cultivators with a spiritual root had different heavenly gate acupoints and dantian compared to ordinary people. Therefore, even though Lu Changxing was a cultivator, he could not specifically see what changes his spiritual root had undergone, or how significant the changes were. He could only discern through specialized treasures used to test spiritual roots, or by using spells and divine skills like spiritual eye technique. However, Lu Changxing was not in possession of these means at the moment. Thus, he chose the simplest and most direct method, to observe the speed at which he was drawing in nature's spiritual energy during cultivation and how it compared to before. After all, an increase in one's spiritual root would most directly and clearly be reflected in one's sensitivity and throughput of spiritual energy. The better the spiritual root, the higher the degree of fusion with spiritual energy, the faster the cultivation speed and the fewer the bottlenecks. Several hours passed. Lu Changxing was certain that his cultivation speed had indeed increased. But this increase was very slight. Less than 10%. With such a small enhancement, Lu Changxing came to a conclusion. His son's spiritual root was nothing remarkable. Even though Lu Xianxi had just been born and his spiritual root had not yet stabilized, and even if it could grow until he was 5 or 6 years old, it was unlikely to reach a high level. As expected, it was an 8th grade, the lower grade spiritual root. To have a spiritual root in the 7th child is lucky enough. How could the quality of the spiritual root be any better? Lu Changxing sighed softly, knowing this was quite normal. His wives and concubines were all ordinary people, and his spiritual root was only 9th grade. The probability of his children having a spiritual root was about 1 to 2%. To have a spiritual root in the 7th child was already very fortunate. As for how good the born spiritual root was, hoping for a middle grade or higher grade spiritual root was truly wishful thinking. Except for a few rare cases, most children's spiritual roots are similar to their parents, not much higher in grade. Moreover, 99% of people with spiritual roots have lower grade ones. All these immortal seedlings that came to the Lu family had lower grade spiritual roots. Not a single one had a middle grade spiritual root. If you want to have more children with spiritual roots, you need to have them with a woman who has a spiritual root. If both parents have spiritual roots, especially if they are cultivators, the probability of their children having spiritual roots can be as high as 10 to 20%. Lu Changxing thought to himself. He realized that if he continued like this, having children with ordinary women, 99% of his offspring would be mortals. Indeed, he had mixed many utilitarian intentions into his marriages and reproduction. But he didn't want to keep having children blindly. Otherwise, the children without spiritual roots could only watch as they experienced the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. As for ensuring their happy growth and a blissful life, it was not a problem now with fewer children, as he could treat them all well and evenly. But what if the number of children became too many? Lu Changxing knew that at that time, it would be impossible for him to treat them all equally without favoritism. Looking at the history of past emperors killing their sons, you would know. If he had too many, he would inevitably do the same, neglecting the children without spiritual roots. Furthermore, taking wives and concubines to father children also required a certain amount of his time and energy. Thinking about this is still somewhat far-fetched. To have children is natural, and if the conditions are met, one should still strive for good breeding. Lu Changxing took a deep breath, shook his head and stopped dwelling on these thoughts. He also felt that he was overthinking and being indecisive and emotional. Cultivation itself is an act against the natural order. If he gets too entangled in emotions, it will be hard to go far, and he might even invite a heart demon upon himself. I wonder if I could take a woman with a spiritual root from the Lu family after becoming a talisman master. Seeing that it was already daylight, Lu Changxing got up to leave the house, ready to tell Uncle Fu about his ability to draw first-grade lower-ranked talismans. Suddenly, he thought whether becoming a first-grade talisman master would allow him to marry a woman with a spiritual root from the Lu family. If it had been before, this would have been absolutely impossible. merely wishful thinking of a live-in son-in-law, daring to covet marrying above his status. But now, with the talent he had displayed in talisman making, becoming an elementary talisman master was not impossible. As long as he wasn't trying to marry Lu Miaoge, one of the core females of the Lu family, there might be hope. If I could marry several women with spiritual roots, it would be ideal. The children born later would likely have spiritual roots. Whether for myself or for the children, it would be a good thing. However, there's no rush for now and hurrying won't help. Lu Changxing thought. It would be good to marry a woman with spiritual roots. But he was only at the second level of qi refinement now, relying solely on his first-grade lower-ranked talisman-making skill. Even if he married a woman with spiritual roots, he feared that the power balance in the marriage would not be strong and the harmony he currently enjoyed might be disrupted. Moreover, if he made such a request to the Lu family, it would definitely not be as simple as taking wives of worldly background like before. He would need to pay some sort of price. So Lu Changxing felt there was no need to rush this matter for the moment. It was something to consider when his circumstances improved. Not to mention, with his second-ranked talisman-making skills, marrying a few fairies with spiritual roots would not be difficult in the future. Chapter 17. The New Contract Terms. _1, Lu Changxing, you say you can draw first-grade talismans now? In the living room, Uncle Fu's face lit up with surprise and joy upon hearing Lu Changxing's words. Yes, Uncle Fu, it's just that I'm not quite proficient yet. Lu Changxing nodded, then took out a talisman and said, this is a first-grade lower-tier talisman I've made, the Fire Bullet Talisman. This talisman naturally differed from those Lu Changxing usually drew. The rune lines looked a bit rough and not very smooth, but had managed to succeed all the same. It really is a first-grade talisman, a Fire Bullet Talisman. Very good, very good. You go back and rest first, I'll report this to the family head. Rest assured, now that you've become an elementary talisman master, our Lu family will definitely not treat you unfairly. Uncle Fu took the talisman, examined it for a moment to confirm it was correct, and then joyfully said, yes, thank you, Uncle Fu. Lu Changxing bowed slightly to take his leave and went to await the results. Lu Changxing was playing with his children in the courtyard. The older kids could now walk and were running around the yard, full of life and energy. At that moment, the courtyard bell chimed. Someone had arrived. Opening the courtyard door, he saw 3 figures standing there. They were Uncle Fu, along with the patriarch of the Lu family, Lu Yuanding, and the young Miss Lu Miaoge. Seeing the 3 of them, Lu Changxing immediately understood their purpose. It was regarding his ascension to the rank of elementary talisman master. He hadn't expected that just one day would pass before the family head came to visit. And to personally come to his doorstep, no less. I pay my respects to the family head, the young miss, and Uncle Fu. Lu Changxing hurriedly bowed and gestured for the 3 to enter, leading them to the main hall. He signaled for his wife to take the children to the back courtyard. These are all your children, right? They can walk already. Lu Yuanding, who was handsome with an air of scholarly elegance, said warmly upon seeing the kids in the courtyard. Yes, family head. Lu Changxing replied with a nod. No need to be so formal, Changxing. You've been with the family for over 2 years now, haven't you? Lu Yuanding now spoke like an elder of the family, calling Lu Changxing by his given name, Changxing. To respond to the family head, I have been with the Lu family for almost 2.5 years. Lu Changxing replied. How time flies, it's been over 2 years just like that. I hope you've been adjusting well over these past 2 years. Lu Yuanding continued. Apart from the beginning when he took some time to check on the Immortal seedlings and made a couple of trips to Jianghu Villa, he hadn't visited much thereafter. Thank you, family head. I have been doing very well these 2 years and Uncle Fu has taken good care of me, Lu Changxing said. Yet, in his heart, he couldn't help but think to himself that he was already 20 years old, not some 3-year-old child to be played with like this. Some actual benefits would be the real deal. At that moment, one of Lu Changxing's wives brought in some spiritual tea to the main hall, then left after setting it down. Changxing, Uncle Fu told me that you can now draw first-grade lower-tier talismans. Lu Yuanding then took a sip of the tea and got straight to the point. Yes, family head, after continuously practicing for this period of time, I've managed to draw the Fire Bullet Talisman. It's just that the success rate isn't high right now, only about 1 or 2 chances in 10, Lu Changxing explained. All beginnings are difficult. In just over a year, you've honed your talisman-making skill to this level and become an elementary talisman master, which is very impressive. Show me what you can do. It's perfect that Miaoge is here too, she can take a look and give you some guidance. Lu Yuanding said in a gentle tone. Having seen the fire bullet talisman Lu Changxing gave Uncle Fu, he naturally knew that Lu Changxing could draw a first-grade talisman. But such matters certainly required another direct observation for confirmation. Yes, family head. He'll go get the talisman-making tools. Lu Changxing stood up and said. No need, I have them here. Lu Miaoge, who was sitting nearby, stood up and said. She took out a set of talisman-making tools. Her voice remained soft and gentle as flowing water, making one feel as if they were basking in the spring breeze. Thank you, young Mississippi. Lu Changxing took the tools from Lu Miaoge's hands. The talisman brush was still the golden bamboo brush from the last time. Approaching the table, he spread out the talisman paper, and took a deep breath as if slightly nervous. He dipped the brush in ink and began to draw the fire bullet talisman. The first talisman was about halfway completed when a mistake led to the paper emitting blue smoke and the talisman being ruined. Lu Yuanding and the others didn't say much and gestured for Lu Changxing to continue. In the second attempt at drawing, Lu Changxing, despite being somewhat clumsy, still succeeded. You were still a bit nervous, but you've improved greatly compared to the last time. It's just that the application of your spiritual power is not yet precise and natural enough, said Lu Miaoge, gently pursing her moist lips as she offered her critique from the side. With Lu Changxing's second-rank peak-level talisman-making skill, deceiving her was naturally an easy feat. Thank you for your guidance, young Mississippi. My progress is largely due to the essentials of talismans you gifted me, Lu Changxing said, bowing with hands folded, his voice filled with excitement. Very well, I didn't expect you, Changxing, to successfully depict the fireball talisman on your second try. It seems your earlier claim of only having 10 to 20% confidence was a bit too modest. Lu Yuanding also chimed in with a laugh from the side. Internally he couldn't help but feel impressed. He had never thought that Lu Changxing, once nearly discarded due to his 9th-grade spiritual root, would possess such astonishing talent in talisman making. In just a year and a half, he had gone from a novice to an elementary talisman master. This talent was not only on par with his daughter Lu Miaoge but even surpassed her by quite a bit. With such age and talent, he was indeed worthy of the Lu family extending an olive branch. This time it was just luck, good fortune, Lu Changxing said somewhat shyly like a simple young man. Young man, there's no need to be too modest. Lu Yuanding waved his hand, continuing, I've been watching your performance in the Lu family for the past 2 years. I've long regarded you as one of our own. Now that you've become an elementary talisman master, our Lu family cannot possibly underappreciate our own people. This is the revised offer I have for you, have a look. As he spoke, Lu Yuanding took out a parchment of brownish-yellow sheepskin from his sleeve and handed it to Lu Changxing. This was a spiritual contract, somewhat similar to modern contracts from his previous life. Upon Lu Changxing and other immortal seedlings' arrival at the Lu family, they had signed such a contract. Thank you, family head, Lu Changxing said, visibly overwhelmed as he took the spiritual contract and began to read through its contents. The terms laid out were quite straightforward and simple. Not like modern contracts that were densely packed through several pages, where one could miss a trap if not careful. Firstly, the previous contract was voided. Lu Changxing was no longer an upstart son-in-law or a live-in son-in-law of the Lu family. Instead, he was formally married into the family as a son-in-law. Therefore, he no longer needed to provide the Lu family with 50 offspring within 20 years, nor was he confined to how many children with a spiritual root he must have. The children would be his own. Second, he would enjoy the same treatment as the direct descendants of the Lu family. He could move to the core area of Jianghu Valley, live in Jianghu Valley, and have access to a second-grade spirit vein. Moreover, the monthly resources he received were increased from 5 spirit stones to 10, along with 1 bottle of yellow dragon elixir. In return, his obligation was to help the Lu family refine a certain quantity of talismans every month. And, depending on the family's needs, practice making the appropriate talismans, among other things. Of course, these talisman materials would naturally be provided by the Lu family, as part of the cultivation investment from the Lu family's side in talisman making. With Lu Changxing's second-ranked talisman making skill, these obligations were essentially all profit. However, the final clause caused Lu Changxing to frown slightly. Should he decide to leave the Lu family, he would need to give a 20-year notice in advance. Otherwise, he would have to repay threefold the resources that the Lu family had invested in him. The initial terms were indeed favorable, no doubt about it. But the last clause gave him slight hesitation. In essence, the last clause meant that staying with the Lu family was naturally for the best, a reason for everyone to rejoice. If he ever wanted to leave, there were 2 options available. either repay 3 times the resources the Lu family had invested in him over the years, essentially buying his freedom, or give the Lu family a heads up, then work for them for 20 years. Deep within, Lu Changxing had always harbored thoughts of leaving. Once he overcame the initial phase and gained sufficient strength, he would choose to leave the Lu family and establish his own cultivation clan. While the Lu family offered safety and protection, in the end he was under another's roof. Many things and actions were fraught with trepidation. For example, in the area of talisman making, he had delayed showing off his first-grade talisman making skill for a whole year and a half. In his room hidden away were over 400, nearly 500 first-grade talismans. If converted to spirit stones, it amounted to a huge sum of money. Moreover, Lu Changxing knew his talent was not great. To continue on the path of cultivation and for a long haul, he could only rely on the system and had to have many kids, especially those with a spiritual root. Having offspring with a spiritual root from ordinary wives was difficult and troublesome. He had to marry many fairies with a spiritual root. Even if the Lu family was willing to marry women with a spiritual root to him, it would only be 1 or 2 at most. They couldn't be like how it was in ordinary society, where he could readily marry 9 women. Even the idea of taking in numerous common folk women to bear children caused him a degree of concern while in the Lu family. Changxing, if you think there's something inappropriate or have any doubts or questions, feel free to raise them. This contract was only something I thought of today, and naturally, there might be some aspects that haven't been thoroughly considered. Seeing Lu Changxing's hesitant and conflicted expression, Lu Yuanding took a sip of his spiritual tea, still speaking in a gentle tone. Chapter 18. The good-for-nothing son-in-law turns over a new leaf. _1 In the hall, Lu Yuanding and Uncle Fu both looked at Lu Changxing, waiting for him to make a choice. Family head, the terms here are naturally very good, and I am very satisfied with no objections, said Lu Changxing. It's just that I have 2 questions. Whom do these children belong to, me or the Lu family? And if I continue to live in the Lu family, can I still take wives and concubines? Lu Changxing spoke, saying so. He wasn't foolish enough to believe what Lu Yuanding said about thinking up the terms on the spot and suggesting he could raise any issues. Although he had become an elementary talisman master, he was still far from having the qualifications to negotiate with the Lu family on an equal footing. If he brought up leaving now, it would certainly affect how the Lu family perceived him, their viewpoint and arrangements. Despite being dependent on others, he thought about leaving after getting through the initial stage. But for now he still needed the protection of the Lu family to grow, and he would have to stay for a long time. Thus, negotiating terms at this point was unwise. The terms were more or less acceptable. If they were harsh, then so be it. Moreover, the contract from the Lu family was not particularly harsh to the point of being unacceptable. It was within a range that Lu Changxing could accept. After all, the Lu family had nurtured him and allowed him to safely get through the initial stage. It was normal for him to pay a price in return. Lu Changxing was also confident in himself. He believed that, once he had gotten through the early stage with the family, it would not be a big problem to repay the Lu family 3-fold the resources with the help of the system and his second-grade talisman skills. Not to mention the lucre from making talismans with the materials provided by the Lu family in the future, thanks to his 100% success rate in talisman making, would earn him quite a bit. It is well known that the profits from magic artifacts, elixir medicines and talismans are very high, bordering on excessive. Lu Yuanding, upon hearing Lu Changxing's words, was startled and didn't know what to say for a moment. He had just seen Lu Changxing's hesitation and thought he was struggling with the terms and treatment. He hadn't expected Lu Changxing to ask such questions. Whom do the children belong to? And whether he would still be able to take wives and concubines in the future. It was simply. But then he thought about how Lu Changxing was just a common peasant and he came to terms with it. This was entirely a smallholder mentality, concerned only with a wife and children keeping a warm bed. It was only because of a fortuitous coincidence that he possessed a spiritual root and stepped onto the path of immortality, while also having an innate talent for talisman making. In Lu Yuanding's view, this was even better, as it would make it easier for Lu Changxing to integrate into the Lu family and be of use to them. Uncle Fu, on the other hand, was somewhat speechless because of Lu Changxing's questions. He thought to himself that Lu Changxing really had a mind full of lust for women. After having taken 9 Lu family women, he was still not satisfied and was thinking about taking more wives and concubines. It was fortunate that the servants he had previously arranged for Lu Changxing were all older women. If they had been young and beautiful maids, they probably would have been spoiled by now. It wasn't that he was unwilling to part with the girls. He truly wished that Lu Changxing would focus on the talisman path instead of being constantly engrossed in his desires for women. Lu Miaoge, on the other hand, remained as indifferent as ever, her demeanor otherworldly, her thoughts unknown. Haha, don't worry, Lu Yuanding laughed. According to these terms you will be a son-in-law to our Qingzhou Lu family, not just an added member. Naturally all the children are yours. As for taking wives and concubines, that's your freedom. Our Lu family naturally won't interfere, Lu Yuanding continued. They valued Lu Changxing as a person. The talents and worth that Lu Changxing displayed, a few children and worldly women were trivial in their eyes. Thank you, family head. Then I have no other questions, Lu Changxing said as he made an obeisance with his hands. Immediately after, Lu Yuanding had Uncle Fu bring out the contract that Lu Changxing had signed earlier to dissolve it, and had a new contract signed with Lu Changxing on the spiritual contract. From now on, consider the Lu family your own home, Lu Yuanding said with a gentle, scholarly smile. He then gently patted Lu Changxing's shoulder and continued, in the next few days I will have someone prepare your identity plaque and arrange for your residence in Qingzhou Valley. Once everything is set up, Uncle Fu will notify you. For the next few days you'll still stay here. As for your welfare and treatment, it will start from this month, he added. Lu Changxing was slightly startled, aware that the other party was buying his favor. But undeniably, these actions and words were indeed comforting. He nodded and said with his hands cupped, yes, Changxing thanks the family head. Thereupon Lu Yuanding together with Uncle Fu and Lu Miaoge departed. Lu Changxing went out to see them off. Sigh. Watching the three leave, Lu Changxing took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. From now on, he would be considered as having secured his footing in the Lu family, wouldn't he? Afterward, a group of wives and concubines also hurried over. Surrounding Lu Changxing, the family had asked if his visit was due to Lu becoming a talisman master. Ever since they learned that Lu Changxing could draw first-grade talismans 2 days ago, they had been even more anticipating this than Lu Changxing himself. Lu Changxing didn't conceal anything and spoke the truth. He told the women that in some time, his whole family would be able to move and live in Qingzhou Valley with the children. Upon hearing this news, all the women were unexpectedly overjoyed, their eyes looking at Lu Changxing with even deeper affection and tenderness. The next day, news of Lu Changxing becoming an elementary talisman master and soon moving to Qingzhou Valley spread throughout Qingzhou Villa. This news was like throwing a huge rock into a calm lake, creating ripples upon ripples. It made the Lu family disciples in Qingzhou Villa extremely envious and jealous of Lu Changxing. You should know, despite being Lu family disciples, they weren't qualified to live in Qingzhou Valley and could only reside in Qingzhou Villa. Yet now Lu Changxing, a son-in-law from another clan, was able to move into Qingzhou Valley. This implied that Lu Changxing's status as a son-in-law was already higher than theirs. As for the group of immortal seedlings who had arrived at the Lu family along with Lu Changxing, they were even more envious to the point of grinding their teeth. There's a saying that one fears not only the hardship of one's brothers, but also their driving of luxury cars. Usually they wouldn't compare themselves with the Lu family disciples. But like them, Lu Changxing was also discarded by the Qingyun sect and moreover, he was a son-in-law who had married into the Lu family. Seeing Lu Changxing's achievement now naturally sparked their envy, jealousy, and discomfort. They secretly cursed their lack of talent in this area. No matter what they thought, now that Lu Changxing had become an elementary talisman master, they chose to ingratiate themselves with him. One after another they came to offer congratulations and present gifts. After all, having been in contact with cultivation for so long, everyone knew the value of a 20-year-old talisman master. Not just the immortal seedlings, many among the Lu family disciples of Qingzhou Villa also put aside their pride to come to Lu Changxing's house to offer congratulations and gifts, seeking to make his acquaintance. Changxing, congratulations, congratulations. Li Feiyu from next door was the first to come over, bringing his wife to celebrate. He also brought a box of spiritual tea. He had broken through to the innate realm 6 months ago and was now capable of impregnation. His wife was also pregnant. Thank you. We're friends, you didn't need to bring anything. That's very polite of you. Lu Changxing came forward with a smile. He could see that Li Feiyu was somewhat disappointed. After all, Li Feiyu had been devoted to cultivation, and with a 7th grade spiritual root, he had always been far ahead of Lu Changxing in terms of cultivation level. Now that Lu Changxing had become an elementary talisman master, overtaking him on a shortcut with a bright future far exceeding his own. Of course, Li Feiyu was genuinely happy for Lu Changxing becoming a talisman master. He wasn't the narrow-minded type who couldn't bear to see others succeed. Over the past 2+ years, he had formed a very good relationship with Lu Changxing. It's no big deal, such a joyous occasion deserves a gift. How could I come empty-handed? Seeing that Lu Changxing had no pretenses and was the same as before, Li Feiyu also responded with a smile. Afterward, the two of them caught up with each other and chatted leisurely as one after another. People arrived with gifts to offer their congratulations. After receiving visitors throughout the day to offer their congratulations, Lu Changxing looked at the gifts he had received that day and realized he had gotten quite a few. Some gave spirit stones directly, others gave spiritual tea, spirit fruits, and materials for talisman making. In total, he had received roughly 56 spirit stones. This made Lu Changxing sigh in amazement. If in the future he were to have a child and hold a banquet, wouldn't he receive so many gifts that his hands would grow tired? But this was just a thought. With the blessing of many children system, Lu Changxing's approach to his future was to be prudent in everything he did and establish good relationships. After all, he had a family and not a few children, so he needed to pay attention to his reputation. Such matters, being done once or twice, were fine, but doing them excessively would affect his reputation and how others perceived him. It wasn't necessary and could be more trouble than it was worth. In the following days, Lu Changxing continued his usual routine, calmly practicing cultivation, spending time with his children at home, while waiting for Uncle Fu's news. Meanwhile, his wives had joyful expressions as they went to meet their sisters and close friends, visiting and chatting. Simply put, they were showing off the fact that Lu Changxing had become a talisman master. This made the sisters and friends who were married to other immortal seedlings envious, jealous, and resentful. They secretly lamented why they hadn't married Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing observed this behavior and said nothing. After all, his wives were people, not baby-making machines capable of emotions and desires. For now, this was acceptable and caused no harm, but he could already foresee that in the future, his numerous wives and descendants were bound to cause trouble for him, the old ancestor, implicating him in their troubles. A family had its benefits, but sometimes it could also be a burden. But that's the nature of cultivation, gains come with losses. Having chosen this path with the blessing of many children system, Lu Changxing was mentally prepared for it. Chapter 19. Moving. 17 days later, Uncle Fu came to inform Lu Changxing that Jianghu Valley had been arranged for them, and they could move there to live at any time. Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing immediately began to move. However, having lived here for over 2 years, and with 9 wives and concubines and 7 children, naturally, he had accumulated quite a few belongings. Looking at so many items, Lu Changxing felt somewhat of a headache for a moment. The family head had anticipated that moving would be troublesome for you. This is a storage bag, a reward from the family head to you, saying that as a talisman master, you should have a storage bag, which makes things much more convenient. Uncle Fu took out a pitch-black leather bag and handed it to Lu Changxing, saying, "A storage bag." Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing's eyes lit up. Because he was hiding many talismans, he had long thought of buying a storage bag to keep them in. But when he inquired at the 100 Treasures Pavilion, even the cheapest storage bag cost 50 spirit stones. Even though he got 5 spirit stones a month, spending 50 spirit stones to buy a storage bag still pained him, so he didn't buy one in the end. Unexpectedly, Uncle Fu now said that the family head was rewarding him with one. "Thank you, Uncle Fu, thank you, family head." Lu Changxing immediately expressed his thanks. It seemed that having a skill was indeed valued. Now that he had become a talisman master, the Lu family was much more generous with him. As long as you work hard for the Lu family, we will never treat our own people unfairly," Uncle Fu said with a chuckle. Then taking the bag he continued, "You must have never used a storage bag before, let me show you. Just aim the opening at the item you want to put inside, then inject a strand of spiritual power into the bag, lock onto the item, and it will be automatically sucked in." Having said that, he aimed the opening at a chair near a table, and sent in a strand of spiritual power. Immediately, a beam of white light shot out from the bag, enveloping the chair and causing it to rapidly shrink before being sucked into the bag. This is how to store it, and it's the same when taking items out. Just lock the item you want to take out from the storage bag with spiritual power beforehand. As he spoke, another beam of white light shot out and the chair that had been stored flew out, returning to its original size. Watching this, Lu Changxing was both amazed and delighted, feeling that having such a storage bag was incredibly convenient. "Alright, you can take it and use it." Seeing the excitement in Lu Changxing's eyes, Uncle Fu handed over the storage bag to him. However, there are a few precautions when using a storage bag that you should be aware of. First, this storage bag only has a space of 1 cubic meter, and it can only shrink objects tenfold. Therefore, if the object is too huge or if you store too many items inside, the storage bag will become ineffective. Later, for large items like beds and tables, you don't need to put them in as the villa in Jianghu Valley is fully furnished. Second, the storage bag cannot contain living creatures. If you put living people or animals inside, they will surely die. So never try it on children. The third is to not flaunt wealth. This kind of storage bag does not have an owner recognition function. If it gets stolen, anyone can claim the contents as their own, so when you go out, try not to reveal your storage bag in front of other cultivators, otherwise it may attract deadly misfortune. Uncle Fu spoke, his tone serious as he instructed and advised Lu Changxing. Yes, Uncle Fu, I will definitely remember. Lu Changxing nodded his head, firmly imprinting these words in his mind. Immediately after, he took the storage bag and began moving. He stored all the scattered talismans from the studies cabinets and all the other items he needed to bring with him into the storage bag. Suddenly, the originally troublesome move became much simpler. In a short while, he had packed all his belongings. Considering that Lu Changxing's wives and concubines were mostly pregnant and he had so many children, Uncle Fu also arranged for a horse carriage to be waiting at the door. He had all the women and children sit in the carriage. Seeing Li Feiyu, who had come to see him off, Lu Changxing approached with a smile and said, Feiyu, I won't be able to drop by casually from now on, but don't worry, I'll still come to bother you when I have time. If you ever need anything, feel free to look for me anytime. You know our relationship, there's no need for me to say more, right? Lu Changxing said warmly, patting Li Feiyu on the back. The life-saving grace from before, coupled with the friendship they had built over these 2 years, had made Lu Changxing consider Li Feiyu a true friend and a good brother. Sure, I know what kind of person you are. We're both grown men, there's nothing much to say. Go on, it's not like you're going far. Li Feiyu laughed and waved his hand dismissively, looking carefree. Right away, Lu Changxing got on the carriage and together with Uncle Fu they drove towards Jianghu Valley. Watching the departing carriage, Li Feiyu couldn't help but sigh softly, a hint of envy in his eyes, before returning to his room to resume his cultivation. Uncle Fu, Lu Changxing. Uncle Fu, brother Changxing. Changxing bro, moving house? Along the road, someone noticed Uncle Fu and Lu Changxing on the carriage and called out a greeting, their eyes filled with envy. A young girl caught sight of Lu Changxing on the carriage and was momentarily lost in thought, then headed towards the 100 Treasures Pavilion. It wasn't far from Jianghu Villa to Jianghu Valley. The carriage gently moved along for half an hour before Uncle Fu stopped it and said to Lu Changxing, "This is Jianghu Valley. However, it's protected by a formation. To enter you must present the identity plaque I gave you." So said Uncle Fu. Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing looked closely and noticed a layer of nearly invisible transparent ripples in front of them. He had seen a similar formation when he first entered Jianghu Mountain. He hadn't expected there to be another layer of formation inside the Lu family. Then, Uncle Fu took out the identity plaque and drove the carriage through the transparent ripples. The scene inside Jianghu Valley was somewhat similar to the outside. As for the difference, the Jianghu bamboo here was much taller and sturdier compared to the bamboo spreading across the hills outside. And there were even some distinctly visible jade-green bamboo. The air was rich with spiritual energy, faintly carrying the sense of celestial mist. From a distance, one could also see terraced fields where spiritual grains, vegetables and medicines were cultivated. Is this Jianghu Valley? Lu Changxing surveyed the surroundings with some curiosity and asked. Yes, this is the core region of Jianghu Mountain, Jianghu Valley, with a second-grade spirit vein underneath. Living here will make your cultivation efforts much more effective, and if your wives, concubines and children live here long-term, they too will benefit from stronger bodies and longer lives, explained Uncle Fu with a chuckle, then continued to drive the carriage forward, stopping in front of a manor. This will be your residence. Pointing to the manor, Uncle Fu told Lu Changxing. This big? Lu Changxing was somewhat surprised looking at the manor before him. The manor was many times larger than his previous private courtyard, sprawling across 5 or 6 acres at a glance. Of course, coming here, the conditions naturally differ from those at Jianghu Villa. Not only is the manor large and beautifully situated, but it also benefits from soundproofing and spirit-gathering formation effects, Uncle Fu continued to explain. Then the wives and concubines from the carriage disembarked one after another, and upon seeing the manor, they too were so astonished that their mouths hung open. Their previous lives had been in the secular world, where they never had living conditions this lavish. Everyone entered the manor. Inside, each building was constructed with an impressive grandeur. Pavilions, towers, winding corridors, rockeries, and ponds made Lu Changxing feel as though he had entered a prince's mansion from his past life, luxurious and magnificent. Moreover, the misty spiritual energy in the air gave the manor the feel of a fairyland on earth. Tiske, even a residence for someone in the Qi refinement realm is this nice. I wonder how luxurious the living quarters for a foundation-building great cultivator or a nascent soul immortal must be. Lu Changxing marveled as he watched the swaying bamboo, lush flowers and trees and goldfish frolicking in the pond, unable to help his admiration. He was extremely pleased with this residence. Even though he had begun cultivation and was now a cultivator, Lu Changxing still felt he was a commoner at heart. You can take care of moving your things later. First, I'll show you around Jianghu Valley, said Uncle Fu, after letting the family into the manor to Lu Changxing. It's different here than at Jianghu Villa. Everyone lives in their own residence and rarely disturbs each other, so there are some things I need to make you aware of. Uncle Fu took Lu Changxing on a tour around Jianghu Valley. He told him about the taboos and which places to stay away from. Because those living here were mainly high-ranking officials of the Lu family, guest elders, and core members of the direct lineage. Here, there were none of the shops like the 100 Treasures Pavilion because there weren't many residents with such needs. Thus, if one needed to buy something they had to go back to Jianghu Villa. However, on the first of every month, Jianghu Valley would host a small-scale trade fair. Family members and even some guest elders would bring out some of their spare belongings to set up stalls and trade. After showing Lu Changxing around and imparting most things, Uncle Fu then left. And Lu Changxing returned to his new abode. On this day, Lu Changxing officially took up residence in the core region of the Lu family, Jianghu Valley. Chapter 20. Lu family sisters _1 After moving to his new home, Lu Changxing took some items out of his storage bag and then went to his new practice room to begin meditating and cultivating. He was curious to see how much more effective cultivating on the second-grade spirit vein in Jianghu Valley was, compared to the first-grade spirit vein in Jianghu Villa. Several hours later, Lu Changxing opened his eyes, filled with joy. Not unworthy of a second-grade spirit vein, the spiritual energy is several times denser than that of Jianghu Villa, which has increased my cultivation speed by 30%, he exclaimed. At this moment, Lu Changxing clearly felt the benefits that came with the second-grade spirit vein. Moreover, the mere 30% was because his speed of assimilating spiritual energy was limited. Otherwise, Lu Changxing felt that his cultivation speed could increase even more. Nevertheless, he was already quite satisfied with this improvement. Subsequently, Lu Changxing became filled with passion for cultivation in the time that followed. 4 days later, a manager named Lu Bo came to where Lu Changxing lived. He delivered a golden talisman brush and 100 sets of talisman-making materials. Lu Changxing was tasked to produce 20 fireball talismans within a month. This was one of the stipulations in the contract Lu Changxing had with the Lu family. The Lu family provided materials and Lu Changxing made talismans. For Lu Changxing, producing 20 fireball talismans a month was naturally not a problem at all. It was purely a profit. However, this was also the Lu family still considering Lu Changxing to be at a training stage. In the future, the quantity and quality of talisman production were both expected to increase. In the blink of an eye, it had been over a month since Lu Changxing moved to Jianghu Valley. On this day his 8th child was born. It was a daughter. When the child was born, Lu Changxing didn't feel any fluctuations from the spiritual root. He immediately knew that this child didn't possess a spiritual root. Since the confirmation system could detect the child's spirit vein and this child didn't have one, he couldn't help feeling a bit of disappointment in his heart. But it was only a slight disappointment. He had become much more open-minded regarding the matter of his children's spiritual roots and could accept it with equanimity. Looking at his newly born child, Lu Changxing suddenly remembered that today was the last day of the month and tomorrow would be the start of a new one. And on every first day of the month in Jianghu Valley, there was a small-scale trading event. I have never seen such a trading event among cultivators before. It might be worth checking out tomorrow, Lu Changxing thought to himself. As he had become a talisman master previously, Lu family disciples and immortal seedlings had given him a round of gifts, so he had some spare cash. Thus, he wanted to see what this small-scale trading event within the Lu family was all about. The next morning, Lu Changxing went to the place where Jianghu Valley's trading event was held. The trading venue was called Bamboo Heart Lake, and by the lake stood pavilions and waterside pavilions. In these pavilions, various Lu family members displayed items for trade on stone tables. Or they hung up signs indicating they wished to purchase certain goods or resources. He didn't know if he had come too early or if there were always so few people, but there were only about 10 people with stalls. The items for sale were few and scattered, and there wasn't anything he could use. Lu Changxing walked around once and found it uninteresting, ready to head straight back. Just as Lu Changxing was about to leave the waterside pavilion, he saw two women walking towards him, arm in arm. He recognized one of the women. She was the young Miss Lu Miaoge. Miss Lu Miaoge was dressed very simply, her 3,000 strands of verdant hair bound behind her with a moon-white silk band, elegant and graceful. She wore a moon-white, plain long dress without any other adornments, simple and refined, with a celestial and ethereal allure. The other person Lu Changxing had not seen before. But upon seeing this woman, he couldn't help but take a few more glances. This woman appeared to be 18 or 19 years old, extremely beautiful, and bore a 7 to 8 points of resemblance to Lu Miaoge. However, her makeup, dress and temperament were starkly different from Lu Miaoge's. Her makeup was elaborately done, her black, lustrous hair was fastened behind her head with a dark gold hair ornament, with a few locks falling on either side of her chest, while she wore dazzling rhinestone earrings on her tender earlobes. She was draped in a sexy, form-fitting dark dress embroidered with gold threads, revealing her shoulders and perfectly showcasing her curvaceous figure, leaving little to the imagination. The slits in the sides of her dress, akin to a cheongsam, were cut very high, allowing one to glimpse the woman's partly voluptuous thighs and her jade-like smooth calves. However, at this moment, a pair of slender and beautiful legs were not the pure and smooth white that could shame the frost and snow. They were covered in a layer of black silk stockings as thin as cicada wings, making the legs look even more graceful and enticing. What surprised Lu Changxing enough to take a second look were not just the black, see-through silk stockings, but also the shoes the woman was wearing, a pair of exquisite high heels with fine black and gold patterns. The sharp heels, estimated to be 3 to 4 inches tall, enhanced the contour of the woman's legs and made them appear even more perfect and provocative. They were simply leg-loving material. The whole person looked coolly elegant and nobility personified, sexy and alluring, standing a good half-head taller than Miss Lu Miaoge, who was beside her. "What are you looking at? If you leer any more, I'll gouge out your eyes." The black-dressed, high-heeled woman saw Lu Changxing's gaze on her, and her voice was as cold as icy springs. "Huan Huan." Seeing this, Lu Miaoge gently tugged at her sister. She then showed an apologetic expression to Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing also felt that he had been somewhat rude. Mainly because he hadn't expected to see an attire of black stockings and high heels in this world of cultivation. Moreover, the woman's outfit, a dark gold dress with black stockings and high heels, did indeed catch the eye. The noble coldness combined with a touch of sexy temptation made him involuntarily take a second glance. "I have seen the Mississippi. I have seen this, miss, it was my rudeness." Lu Changxing bowed courteously. If it were the past him, he might have been embarrassed. But now, as a man with 3 wives and 6 concubines, father to several children, such a small matter did not embarrass him. Desire is natural. Seeing black stockings for the first time and taking a second look is just human nature, isn't it? However, through Lu Miaoge's words and the two women's appearance, he realized that the pair were sisters, which somewhat surprised him. He didn't expect such a big difference in temperament and character between the two sisters. "Lu Changxing, are you here to buy something?" Lu Miaoge's soft voice inquired. "I heard Uncle Fu say that there is a small trade fair here on the 1st of every month, so I thought I'd come over to have a look." Lu Changxing so replied. "The trade fair won't be full until midday. You've arrived a bit early," said Lu Miaoge softly. "I see, but I'm not really here to buy anything. I just came to broaden my horizons, and now that I'm ready to go back." Lu Changxing nodded, not lingering for further conversation. Being attracted to beauty is quite normal, but a woman like Lu Miaoge is not someone he can afford to provoke at the moment, so it's better to keep a distance. Especially in such a public setting, who knows if conversing with Lu Miaoge might draw the attention of her admirers or followers. Without delay, Lu Changxing made a bow and took his leave. Watching Lu Changxing walk away, the black-dressed woman beside Lu Miaoge commented with a hint of disdain on her face, "So that's Lu Changxing? He really is as lecherous as the rumors say, having married and taken 9 concubines, and he's still so lecherous." "Huan Huan, you two should pay some attention to how you dress. This is a bit," Lu Miaoge said gently. "You mean it's a bit frivolous, right? Sister, women dress for those they fancy." "I'm dressing up for myself, not for anyone else," Lu Miaohuan retorted with a pout, unconcerned by her sister's words. "It seems I still know too little about this world." "That's also true. I spent the first 18 years of my life in a village, and aside from being taken to the Qingyun sect, the farthest I've ever been was to the county town." Since coming to the Lu family, I haven't stepped foot outside at all. Everything I know comes from reading books, so how could I understand much? This is a world with cultivation, so I shouldn't look at things with a limited perspective. All those immortal and fantasy animations from my past life always featured high heels and long legs, so the existence of stockings and high heels here is actually quite normal. Lu Changxing returned to his quarters, feeling somewhat reflective. He didn't take today's incident to heart. It was just a minor interlude in life. But in the future he should look into where to buy such shoes and stockings. He had no other intentions. He merely wanted to give his wives and concubines some gifts. Chapter 21, 3-Year Agreement. _1 In the monotonous and dull life of cultivation, talisman making, and spell practicing, another month had passed. Lu Changsheng's another concubine was pregnant with a second child. At the same time, the 9th child was also born. Still, there was no pulsation of the spiritual root, indicating the absence of one. On the second day after the birth of the 9th child, Lu Changxing received a letter. He was somewhat surprised when he saw the letter. It was actually from Hong Yi, who had attended the Immortal sect's examination with him. The letter started with simple greetings and then inquired whether Lu Changxing still remembered the 3-year agreement they had made. It had been more than 2 years since they had parted from the Qingyun sect. He hoped that Lu Changxing and Li Feiyu would also come together to catch up. And he mentioned that Xianxia, Zhao Qingqing and Han Lin had all agreed to the meeting. The 3-year agreement. Lu Changxing, looking at the content of the letter, narrowed his eyes slightly. This 3-year agreement was a casual remark made by Hong Yi when the 6 of them were introduced to the Qingyun sect. They had agreed, regardless of whether they entered the Immortal sects or not, to gather at Rui Prefecture's largest restaurant, Rui Tower, 3 years later. If it weren't for Hong Yi's letter, Lu Changxing would have forgotten about it and considered it just a joke. He did not expect that Hong Yi would actually write to mention it. He also said that Xianxia, Zhao Qingqing and Han Lin would all come. There is about half a year left, should I go? Lu Changxing thought to himself. On his way to Qingzhou Mountain in the past, the attack by the Chen family cast some shadows on him. He felt the cultivation world was too dangerous and did not want to leave the Lu family lightly. But the thought of the meeting and that Xianxia, Zhao Qingqing and Han Lin would also be there gave him some inclination to attend. As the saying goes, the more friends one has, the more paths one finds. All 3 were disciples of the Qingyun sect, and maintaining this friendship might be beneficial and advantageous for him in the future. He wasn't close to Xianxia and Zhao Qingqing, but he had a fairly good relationship with Han Lin back then. On this trip to the meeting, I can also deal with the talismans I've accumulated over the years and buy some materials for drawing high-quality and supreme talismans. With these talisman treasures on me, as long as I don't encounter a foundation-building cultivator, there shouldn't be a problem. Moreover, after seeking the path of cultivation and leaving my home for 3 years, it's time to go back for a visit. After thinking it over, Lu Changxing decided to make the trip. Besides attending the meeting, there were other things he needed to do. He had to make some decisions about his worldly family affairs as well. Since I've received the letter, Feiyu must have received one too, Lu Changxing thought. Immediately, he went out and headed towards Qingzhou Villa to see what Li Feiyu planned to do. It would be safer for the 2 of them to travel together. Lu Changxing did not go directly to Li Feiyu's house. Instead, he first went to the 100 Treasures Pavilion to greet the shopkeeper. If it were not for the storekeeper of the 100 Treasures Pavilion, his talent for talisman making wouldn't have become so smoothly known by the higher-ups of the Lu family. Thus, he came to visit and express his gratitude. Besides, he was still dependent on the Lu family, and it was good to cultivate a favorable impression by befriending the people of the Lu family. After all, cultivation is not only about practicing and fighting. There are also interpersonal relationships and worldly affairs to navigate. The shopkeeper of the 100 Treasures Pavilion was delighted and gratified to see Lu Changxing come to Qingzhou Villa to visit him. Initially he had helped Lu Changxing out of self-interest. He saw that the young man had a good talent for talisman making and was a decent person, suitable to be utilized by the Lu family. But Lu Changxing's gesture added a few more points of fondness in his heart. He felt the young man was indeed commendable. Afterward, Lu Changxing bought some medicinal herbs for strengthening the foundation and nurturing vitality from the 100 Treasures Pavilion as gifts and brought them to Li Feiyu's home. He now had 10 spirit stones a month, while Li Feiyu still had only 2 spirit stones. Directly providing for the latter would not be accepted. And he wouldn't do that either. Not to mention he wasn't wealthy enough to afford it, doing so would also change the nature of their friendship. Visiting now with some gifts in hand was just appropriate. Carrying the gifts, Lu Changxing arrived at Li Feiyu's home. If you're going to visit, why bother bringing gifts? Li Feiyu was somewhat surprised and delighted to see Lu Changxing coming. It's not like we're just neighbors dropping by, so it's perfectly normal to come over and bring something. Besides, in 2 months my sister-in-law will be giving birth, and all these are things to nourish her body. Lu Changxing said casually. He and Li Feiyu were of the same age, but Li Feiyu was older by several months, so Lu Changxing also called Li Feiyu's wife sister-in-law. Alright, then he'll take it without being polite. Upon hearing this, Li Feiyu did not hesitate and directly accepted the gifts. You've received Hong Yi's letter too, haven't you? As they entered the living room, Li Feiyu brewed a pot of tea and, guessing the purpose of Lu Changxing's visit, started the conversation. I did, and after seeing the letter, I thought that since Han Lin and the others are going, I might as well go too to get together. And I've been away from home for so long, it's time to go back and settle things, so I came over to see what you think. Lu Changxing stated directly. I have the same idea. Li Feiyu nodded and said. Great, then we'll go together. We still have half a year and we should set out about a month in advance. After all, traveling from Jianghu Mountain to Rui Prefecture takes quite some time, Lu Changxing said. No problem, I usually don't have much going on. Just come and call me on the day you leave, Li Feiyu said. Subsequently, the two chatted for a while, and Lu Changxing had lunch at Li Feiyu's home before leaving. Time flew, and another half a month passed by. On this day, Lu Changxing's 10th child was born. Just like the others, this child did not have a spiritual root. However, the instant the child was born, a system notification sounded. Congratulations to the host, the number of progeny has reached 10. You've earned 1 lottery chance. As expected. Upon hearing the system notification, Lu Changxing was delighted and thought to himself that it was as he expected. He had previously suspected that once certain achievements were triggered, they would lead to rewards. The first numeral was 1. It was highly likely that the second numeral was 10. I wonder if the next one is 20, 50, or 100, Lu Changxing pondered. Without further thought, Lu Changxing went to see the child. It was a girl, adorable indeed. After visiting his wives and children, Lu Changxing returned to his study to start his 4th lottery draw. System, I want to draw a prize. Lu Changxing silently wished. Immediately, a pale red virtual lottery wheel appeared before his eyes. Looking at the familiar lottery wheel, Lu Changxing took a deep breath and prayed in his heart. He hoped for a cultivation technique. His current returning origin technique was a primary level common cultivation technique. The advantage was that the cultivation was steady and smooth, with almost no risk of issues during the process. However, the downside was the same, too steady, which caused the absorption of spiritual energy to be exceedingly slow. He hadn't felt it much while at Jianghu Villa. Now that he had come to Jianghu Valley to cultivate on the 2nd grade spiritual vein, this feeling was very pronounced. Therefore, Lu Changxing thought that if he could obtain a cultivation technique, this situation should improve. After all, even if the system was stingy, it would at least provide a peripheral sect-level technique, right? Start the draw. Lu Changxing exhaled and declared. Instantly, a golden light spun on the pale red wheel. After 5 seconds, the wheel slowed down. Under Lu Changxing's gaze, filled with a mix of nervousness and anticipation, the golden light settled on pet beasts. Chapter 22, 9 Netherhound. _1, ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a 9 Netherhound cub. The reward has been distributed to the system space, and the host can check it at any time. An image of a small creature, dark as the abyss and resembling a wolf or a dog, emerged from the big wheel, accompanied by a system notification sound. A 9 Netherhound cub? Lu Changxing paused, his face lighting up with joy. Although it wasn't the cultivation technique he wanted most, he also considered pet beasts quite nice. After all, those who played games in their previous lives know the importance of having a good pet. It's pretty much the same in this cultivation world. If one has a good spiritual pet to accompany them as they grow, it can provide considerable help in both combat power and other aspects. Although he had never heard the name 9 Netherhound, Lu Changxing was unsure of what rank this demon beast was, but after the previous 3 draws, Lu Changxing had some trust in the system. He knew that while products from the system might sometimes be useless, they were never trash. Lu Changxing directed his mental spirit to look at the 9 Netherhound in the system space, and information immediately surfaced. Spiritual pet, 9 Netherhound, rank, Heaven grade middle grade, description, an ancient fierce beast variant with Heaven grade middle grade bloodline, possessing a trace of the primordial true spirit 9 Netherhound bloodline, can grow to its peak in 500 years and become a 4th rank demon beast. This a heaven-grade middle-grade bloodline, and it even has a trace of the primordial true spirit's bloodline. As long as it grows to its peak, it can become a 4th-ranked demon beast. Upon seeing the information about the 9 Netherhound, Lu Changxing gasped in surprise and felt a wave of exhilaration. In the cultivation world, besides the human race, there are many other races, such as winged, feathered, scaly, insect, flora and fauna that can cultivate and ascend, are all collectively called demons. However, most demons are unenlightened with little intelligence and are also known as demon beasts. The strength division of demon beasts is very straightforward. From low to high they are classed as 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, corresponding to the Qi refinement realm, foundation establishment stage, core formation stage, nascent soul stage, and divinity transformation stage of the human cultivators. The difference between demon beasts and humans is that humans possess a spiritual root and strengthen themselves through cultivation techniques, while demon beasts cultivate and grow stronger through the bloodline inheritance within their bodies. The higher the bloodline rank, the greater the potential. As far as Lu Changxing knew, the bloodline ranks for demon beasts were divided into low-rank bloodline, middle-grade bloodline, high-rank bloodline, earth-grade bloodline, heaven-grade bloodline, and the legendary true spirit bloodline. Low-rank bloodlines, also known as mixed bloodlines, will never break through to become 2nd-rank demon beasts in their lifetimes without some sort of fortuitous encounter that purifies or mutates their bloodline. Middle-grade bloodlines will grow into 1st-rank demon beasts, but there's hope to grow into 2nd-rank demon beasts. High-rank bloodline demon beasts will mostly be 2nd-rank at their peak, with a chance to become 3rd rank. Earth-grade bloodline demon beasts are 2nd rank in their mature stage, and at their peak they have a high chance of reaching 3rd rank. As for heaven-grade demon beasts, they are 3rd rank in their mature stage and can hope to reach 4th rank at their peak. This 9 Netherhound obtained by Lu Changxing not only had a heaven-grade middle-grade bloodline but also a trace of the primordial true spirit bloodline. Therefore, given 500 years, it could smoothly grow to its peak and become a 4th-rank demon beast. That is equivalent to a human cultivator at the nascent soul stage. A 4th-rank demon beast is equivalent to a human nascent soul true lord. According to the information I've seen in the Lu family library, within the Jianghu country cultivation realm where I'm situated, the nascent soul stage is the ceiling. Only the Heavenly Sword sect has a nascent soul true lord in residence. Even the Qingyun sect that I tried to enter through the assessments doesn't have a nascent soul true lord presiding over it. If the 9 Netherhound can grow into a 4th-rank demon beast, I could walk sideways through Jianghu country's cultivation realm with complete impunity, Lu Changxing said with a trace of excitement and exhilaration. In the cultivation realm of Jianghu country where he resided, the strongest power was known as Heavenly Sword sect. Within its gates sat a nascent soul true lord. Beneath it were Qingyun sect, Wuxia sect, and Spirit Taming sect, the 3 great immortal sects. Although these 3 great immortal sects didn't have a nascent soul true lord at their helm, they each possessed several nascent soul immortals and had very profound foundations. Beyond the 3 great immortal sects were 2 sects, 3 cities and 3 aristocratic families, making up 8 great powers. All 8 powers were headed by a nascent soul immortal and were considered the pinnacle forces within Jianghu country's cultivation realm. As for cultivation families like the Lu family of Jianghu Mountain, which only had a foundation establishment stage cultivator at their helm, there were many, and it was impossible to record them all in the books. Moreover, Lu Changxing noted that the book he saw was almost 100 years old. The content recorded therein was likely to have changed considerably by now. But a moment later Lu Changxing shook his head again. Even if one cultivates to the peak of the Qi refinement realm, one would only have a lifespan of 100 years. Breaking through to the foundation establishment stage would only extend one's life by another 100 years, living to be a bit over 200. Only a nascent soul immortal can have a lifespan of 500 years. Therefore, if I can't break through to the nascent soul stage and become a nascent soul true lord myself, even if the 9 Netherhound grows into a 4th-rank beast, it wouldn't mean much to me. The lifespan of demon beasts is generally several times that of humans. For demon beasts, a 9 Netherhound managing to grow into a 4th rank within 500 years is already quite fast. But for humans this period is a bit lengthy. After all, even the lifespan of a nascent soul immortal barely exceeds 500 years. Even if one consumes life-extending elixirs or heavenly treasures, at most a few more decades or a century could be added, but ultimately it is limited. Only after breaking through to the nascent soul stage can one's lifespan surpass 1,000 years. With a 500-year pinnacle period, reaching maturity in 200 or 300 years shouldn't be a problem. Maturity should be equivalent to a third-rank beast at the core formation stage. So, growing into a second-rank beast in around 100 years would also be feasible. Looking at it this way, it seems not too bad. Moreover, in the world of cultivation, there are methods to tame and control beasts, including many techniques that can speed up the growth of demon beasts. Lu Changxing licked his lips, thinking to himself. The growth of demon beasts can be divided into infancy, growth, maturity, and peak, 4 stages. The 9 Netherhound cub he won in the lottery naturally was in its infancy. But according to the 100 arts of cultivation he knew of, there existed a skill called beast taming. It involves domesticating demon beasts into spiritual beasts for cultivators to utilize. The pet beasts that Lu Changxing's system awarded naturally didn't need domestication and were absolutely loyal to him. However, within these beast taming techniques, there were many husbandry methods capable of accelerating the growth of spiritual beasts. Lu Changxing was aware that the spirit taming sect, one of the 3 great immortal sects, was renowned for nurturing spiritual beasts, with each disciple taming and controlling a spiritual pet. This isn't urgent at the moment. I can look into it later if I get the chance to obtain the method for nurturing spiritual beasts. For now, I'll just raise it normally. But right now, it's inconvenient for me to take the 9 Netherhound out of the system space. Otherwise, if others see that I seemingly conjured a demon beast cub out of thin air, I'd have no way to explain. It just so happens that I need to make a trip to the secular world soon. When I return, I can take it out and claim I bought it to guard the house or to be a companion for the children. After some contemplation, Lu Changxing decided not to take the cub out of the system space but to continue keeping it inside. Like system rewards, keeping it within the system space without taking it out doesn't affect it in the slightest. But once it's taken out, there's no way to put it back in. P.S. Thank you book friend 20180320084218622 for the 5,000 coin reward. I feel a deep sense of recognition. Also, thank you Fatty Head for the 500 coin reward, and book friend 20200911024200054 for the 100 coin reward. You're tuning in to the Phantom Sword Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.